September 22nd, 2010. We're here with Dave and Yvonne Moody and their condo at 10 First Street in Bayfield, overlooking the lake. Beautiful spot, and where they spend the summers, winters in Florida. Okay.
Yeah, Bob Nelson reporting in. I want to start off with a little icebreaker question. Just, tell me a little bit about yourself, Dave, and then Yvonne, and we'll just flip back and forth, and a little fun tidbit we should know about your personality, maybe, or something like that, and then we'll move into more hardcore things.
Okay. You go ahead and start.
Dear, a little tidbit about myself.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I like detective work. I like finding out things, and that's why I ended up being a radiologist, and because that's detective work. You're looking at a film and trying to figure out what's going wrong, and that's, I think, why my hobby has become genealogy, because it's the same sort of thing. You're trying to find clues to put together a story or something like that. So
To come to a conclusion.
That's right.
Yvonne, share with us a little bit about yourself, then we'll go back to the families a little bit when we're done here, okay?
Okay. Well, tell you about myself. I like to cook.
That's evidence. You do quite a few classes and things
Yes,
like
and
that.
over the years I've had a lot of fun with that, and Dave's always, like I've said, supported my habit. He's let me go off to cooking schools and do that sort of thing. I think we've had a very happy life together, and we have very fine children, of course, and we're blessed with 7 grandchildren, and so life has been good. It's been very good.
Tell me a little bit about your children. What's their names and where are they at nowadays? This is kind of new to me here too. So
We have 3 sons. John is the oldest, and he and his wife Courtney both work for General Motors, so they're in a suburb of Detroit, and they have a daughter who's a senior in high school and a son who's a sophomore in high school. And they also have a summer home in Traverse City, so we go across the UP every once in a while to visit them. And I guess, they've been lucky. They've made it through the General Motors problems, and they seem to be okay. We have a second son who lives in Los Angeles, and his wife Beth is from Chicago, and they met at a wedding years ago, and they now have a teenager who's 16, a boy, and twin boys who are 14.
cool.
And they were in New York for many years, and now they're living in Los Angeles because he was transferred out there. And then our youngest is Ned, who is the one I said was more like Ernie, and he is living in Oak Park, Illinois, with his wife Katie and 2 little girls.
What was the middle son's name again? I didn't quite catch.
Joel,
Joel. Okay.
and his wife is Beth.
So the Moody family has 3 sons: Joel, John, Joel, and Ned.
Ned, right.
Nice. Well, it's pretty well known in the Bayfield circles that you both come from storied families from the area. One arrived a little bit later than the other, but I'd kind of like to go back to the old LaPointe family a little bit. And I'm wondering, Yvonne, if you could tell us a little bit about the history, as far back as you can remember, and maybe the historian over here can, fill in a few
Right.
little holes too, when called upon, and you
Right.
can, do the footsie thing with them there. And let's go back to old France.
Old France, the ancestor who came to Quebec in the 1600s was Nicolas Audet, A-U-D-E-T. And he came to the Ile d'Orléans, which is near Quebec City, and the family started there, I think 1650, perhaps, is that right? And after he was there a few years, he married a woman by the name of Madeleine Dupré, and she was one of the daughters of the king that was sent over from France after giving the family a dowry to marry these young fellows who were in Quebec to populate the country. So that was how it all started. From there, they spent, that family was in Quebec until, well, some of them are probably still there, but my grandfather then came to the United States the last part of 1800s, like 1890.
1890.
1890.
What
Bay
was the
City.
family name over there?
It was O'Day, and then in the 1700s it became O'Day de la Pointe, D-I-T, de la Pointe, and that, as translated, I think O'Day, that is to say La Pointe, that sort of thing. And that's very common in Quebec.
Yeah,
that they do.
D-I-T-D means,
D, to say.
means to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the name then eventually just became La Pointe, probably when? In the 1900s?
Well, it varied in the different branches of the family, but somewhere in the early 1800s, I would say, or 1790s or 1800s.
So by the time they came to America, it was definitely La Pointe, that part of the family. And then a couple of my aunts and uncles were born in Michigan, but most all of them. And my dad was the baby of 13, so he was born here along with Philip, his brother. But
And your dad was Ernie.
Ernie, right? But most of them were born in Quebec, and then maybe 3 were born in Michigan, perhaps, and then 2 were born here.
So they kind of migrated from Quebec through Windsor, I'd say, into Detroit, into Michigan, and up the coast, and finally during the logging days of this area or something like
Yeah.
that, they became interested in the Bayfield Sea.
Right, following the lumbering industry, basically.
That's what they did.
Right.
Were they all lumberjacks in the old days, or?
Well, certainly the brothers who were here, a lot of them worked in the lumbering business, my dad included. And I don't know, I think Eli lumbered, I think Philip might have, William. But a lot of them went to the war during the First World War, and some of them just stayed away then, some of these uncles. But when I grew up, as a child, I just remember I had aunts and uncles all over the place.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
13.
Yeah, it was great.
them.
Right.
The Ernie's older siblings, one went up to Fort William, Port Arthur to a log, and one went to Oregon, and one went to Prince George, BC. All keeping up with the logging industry. They were either most of them worked in mills, from what I can tell, rather than actually being lumberjacks.
They weren't the fellers and the
No,
swampers, that type of thing. They were millmen.
right.
And unfortunately, my grandfather died in the mill in Red Cliff. And that's part of the riding the wind lore in that song.
Tell us a little bit about that life at Royce Point. I know that Ernie and Pitt, Philip, I guess, lived out there, but I know that there's kind of an interesting substrata story there about them growing up on that point. Do you know much about that, Yvonne, or did he share much of that with you in the past?
The Swedetown was where my dad was born, and that was an area right about where the casino is now. And where there are 13 homes or 19 homes. It was a group of homes anyway. And Mary Carlson, in the book that she's done now about Royce Point, uses a map that my dad had done, showing those homes and what families lived in them. And they lived on the reservation, but they had their own little community, and they were all with the lumber company that was
So they
out
all
there.
lived up by the casino. What year was Ernie born?
1903.
03, oh boy.
So we're talking early part of the 20th century now.
Correct.
And his father died in 1908, so he was 5 years old.
The family moved here from Bay City in 1900,
Bay City, Michigan.
Bay City, Michigan.
Okay, that's up on the other coast of on the
On the Lake Huron side.
Huron side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dave, doing his genealogy, has all this history written down, and just recently picked up a couple of copies of microfiche from the place in Ashland, the historical place in Ashland, about the accident that happened to my grandfather, and then about the settlement that they got a few years later.
Oh, really?
Tell us about that.
You go ahead.
The Bayfield Mill, which was the name of the mill in which he was killed,
In Red Cliff.
no, it was in Royce Point.
At Royce Point.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was not the Red Cliff Mill.
No,
It was
there's two.
there were 2 mills in Royce Point and 1 in Red Cliff.
Okay.
So there were 3 mills at various times. He was killed in the Bayfield Mill. The Bayfield Mill Company offered a $4,000 for his death, and his son-in-law sued, and it went all the way to the state Supreme Court. And 3 years later, they got $7,500, which was a lot of money in those days.
In 1908.
1908.
Or
yes.
9, some reason I suppose.
I think 1911 was when they actually got the settlement. Finally came back from the Supreme Court.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah, which was quite a little chunk in those days. You
That's
know.
big money.
Yeah. So, but it was a horrible accident, and of course, the doctor was in Ashland and had to come by train to Bayfield and then by horse and buggy to Red Cliff, and by then he was probably pretty much gone. They just brought him to his home to die.
It was a cutting wound, that type of thing?
His apron that he wore got pulled into the gears of
Duh.
one of the machines that he was working on, a planer or something like that. And so he was pulled into the machine.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So Grandma LaPointe, we always called her Grandma LaPointe. she was quite a lady.
Did you know her?
Oh yes.
What was
Yeah.
her name?
Louise. It was actually Victoria Louise, but she always went by Louise. And she was very French and very small and very,
Petite?
very, yes, very petite and very, very stern, as I remember. She died when I was in maybe 7th grade, something like that. So I remember her very well.
A disciplined Catholic, I would take it?
Yes. And she spent the last 10 years of her life rocking in a chair saying the rosary. She got us all into heaven, I'm sure. She
You
just,
don't have to work later in your life to get there. It's all been done before.
she really was a devout Catholic, and she was very, very cute. But you know, she didn't speak much English, and so it was difficult for me as a child because I didn't know any French. I don't know that I could have understood her anyway because it was a different French that they spoke. And my dad knew how to speak French with her, but never saw a written word in French probably. And when we took my dad and mom to Quebec, 20 years ago or whatever, to follow the family history in Quebec, he would walk up to some gentleman and he'd say, "Comment ça va?" And the old guy would babble back to him in French, and my dad was totally lost.
Yeah, two different dialects.
Yeah, he could not go further than "How are you?"
Lost it, yeah.
Right.
I think that was pretty traditional. A lot of families that grew up, with the language in their family that served both the parents, but not so much the children.
Right.
This probably happened to him too.
Yeah. And so they all kind of lived together out there. Philip was not married. Ernest was not married. Beatrice had become a widow. Her husband, Beatrice Stahl, her husband
Okay.
had drowned on Madeline, right off Madeline. And she had 4 young children. So they all kind of lived together.
Beatrice LaPointe Stahl.
Right.
That's your connection to. I know the Stalls are one of the early groups
Yes.
of people over
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Right.
So
That would be a grandfather to my cousin Roger and that family. A father-in-law to Beatrice,
Right.
Tommy Stahl. I mean, I think there was one even before him.
George. Tommy and George.
Tommy and George, yeah. Yes, so they were connected with that family. So as a child, I remember always knowing that we had these relatives on the island, kind of sure-tail relatives, but they were there. And it was always rather magical to go over there because we didn't go very often. And Howard Russell would let us go over for nothing when we were kids. We would go over and spend an afternoon. And it was really quite remote for us who grew up here as
and
kids.
as close as it was really far away.
As was Sand Island and what you lived through. That was all rather something that I was not familiar with.
Really?
Yes, very mysterious.
Really?
Where you people went in the summer was always a mystery.
Yeah.
Could you describe a little more detail that little settlement out at Roy's Point?
You want to?
No?
Okay. Well,
You describe it.
Larger,
these little homes.
There are two, she's talking about two different locations. When they first arrived, they actually lived in Swedetown, which is on the reservation. It's where the
Whereabouts?
casino is now.
Okay.
There was, as she said, a dozen or so homes there. And why it was called Swedetown, I don't know, because it was mostly French Canadians living there. Later on, they moved to just off the reservation to the Roy's Point area, which was where the two big mills were and where the company probably had built the housing for the workers, or at least that's where the map is that she referred to that Ernie had drawn.
I see.
It's of Roy's Point, the layout of the homes of Roy's Point about 1910 or thereabouts.
On the map, did he identify the names of the people living in buildings?
He
And
did.
Yes.
how precious is that?
He had a remarkable memory for that sort of thing. That is, I think, one of the reasons why this whole program was started years ago was because my dad died as the result of an accident,
Yeah.
and all that history went with him.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Yes, and in fact, the reunion that was held this summer was basically of families that had their origins at Roy's Point. The Ericksons, the Arsenaults, the Brisettes, the Fortines, the
Haberts,
Heberts, yeah, Heberts, yep,
Hebert.
Hebert, yes.
Right.
Half a dozen different families, all that lived out there at one time. And the patriarch of the family, the matriarch, was Martin Erickson's wife, who immigrated to this country with her mother and two sisters. So they're all related through
her.
those Swedes or Norwegians, whichever they were. I never can keep them straight.
Yeah, we know Christine. You talking about?
Talking about Christine.
Yeah, Christine and Martin Erickson.
Yeah,
Mickelson was her maiden name.
that's exactly right. And there were three Mickelson. There was a mother Mickelson and three daughter Mickelsons that came over. One of them became the Chappies. And
Married into the old, I want to say, Irving Chapey
yeah, right.
family.
And the third daughter, I've not been able to trace. I don't know what happened to her.
But didn't she turn out to be a Brown?
No,
Okay.
no. Mrs. Mickelson Sr. then married a Brown.
Gotcha.
So it was Christine's stepfather was a Brown.
There's a Mickelson name located in the north end of the town of Russell, where the Peterson Hill Road goes across there. There's Mickkelson.
That's the way it's spelled.
And it
It's the
shows,
same.
I think, Peter Mickelson or something like that. Does that ring a bell with you there?
Nope.
Okay.
It does
Well,
not.
anyway, that's the connection via into
Yeah.
the LaPointe family, neighbor family, that group that lived at Roy's Point. Okay, I wondered about that.
When he was asking about what it was like out there then, I remember as a child then going to the Royce Point home of my grandmother.
Where was that?
Well, it was right about where you go into the Brickyard Creek homes now.
Okay.
Isn't that right? Right at that entrance. And it was the building that is now the Peterson grocery store because they moved it.
Okay.
Oh,
And that was at that location. And as a child, my mom used to work, you know, as a bookkeeper around Bayfield, and she would take me out there to stay with my grandmother. And they had that little store in the front, and I remember whenever I went out there, they'd always give me a treat out of the store. You know, I could always pick something sweet, of course, out of the store. And I would stay out there all day with them, and then they'd come to pick me up. So and then when Uncle Philip finally took over that store, he and Lucille and Carol Olson was Lucille's daughter, and Philip's stepdaughter, and she and I were in the same grade in school, so we were friends, and I would go out and play with her. And I remember wandering around that whole area and down to Mrs. Montreal's house, and she had a well, and we'd open the wooden thing off, the cover off the well, and look down. It was all very...
The Montreal house, that still stands, doesn't
I
it?
think it does.
Isn't that where the, isn't there a business in there now that sells native artifacts or something like that?
I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah.
I think the house was still there.
I remember my dad and I driving by, and that's where Benny Montreal and
Yeah,
Lucy grew
that
up.
was the
Right.
name,
That's
Benny
it,
Montreal.
Yeah, and Lucy Shovik, she was in Montreal.
Yeah.
Yvonne, what was did the store have a name?
Well, Uncle Philip's called it LaPointe's Grocery,
Grocery.
but prior to that, I don't recall that it was called anything.
My dad would always say we're going out to pick up some
To
slab
Pitts.
big out to Pitts.
That's
That's
it.
the only place I
Pitts,
ever
right.
knew.
And when my, excuse me, when my grandmother was still there, I don't think there was any booze sold, but I think Uncle Philip got a liquor license later and sold booze out there then. But it was fun to be out there. It was very rural, but they had grown up in that region, and when my dad was growing up, they had a cow and a pig and chickens, and it was really living off the land.
Yvonne, when you were a kid there, do you remember ever, you know where the road down to Brickyard Creek is now? Mm-hmm. Was there do you remember any evidence of the old Brickyard Creek factory or the road going down to the waterfront? Because when I was a kid, we used to sneak down there and smelt along, smelt fish along
Yeah.
that little waterfront, but it was just crowded and overgrown. But how about you when you were a kid?
No, I never was down there, but Uncle Philip talked about it.
Yeah.
About there were remnants of the brickyard down there.
What did he tell you about that?
Only that, not really much more detail than that, but
So when was the brickyard there then, roughly? Do you know, Dave?
We're not even really sure that there was a brickyard there.
Oh.
Mary Carlson has done extensive research into that. Colonel Rudd probably had a brickyard here somewhere, because you can find she's found references to it in the papers of that time. But exactly where it was, nobody
It was
knows.
still out there.
still
But
not there.
we do know she has discovered that there are 4 buildings in town that were built with Bayfield brick from that brickyard, wherever it was.
Okay.
Dave, let's move your way a little bit now to take the pressure off you, Yvonne, here for a
Okay.
few seconds. And the Moody family was not indigenous to this area, but they came to participate in the healthcare of people with tuberculosis, I know. Can you give us a little bit of history, as you know it, of the sanatorium, and then introduce us to your mother and father that route a little bit?
The sanatorium was built in about 1922 by the 3 counties, Ashland, Bayfield, and Washburn. Ashland, Bayfield, and Iron counties. Every county in the state had to have some place for TB patients, and so that was built in 1922. There were a succession of physicians that were there until my father arrived in 1942. And we came in October of 42, after the big flood was over, and he retired in, I think it was 1967. He had been, prior to coming here, at the Minnesota State Sanatorium for TB in Walker, Minnesota, which is a very large hospital with, I think, 4 doctors on the staff or something like that. And he came here and was alone. He was the son of a Presbyterian minister who moved around the Midwest. My mother was the son of Slovenian immigrants who lived up on the Iron Range. I had 3 brothers. I'm the oldest. Michael is 3 years younger than I am. Peter 6 years and Tom 12 years younger. I and Michael were born in Minnesota. The other two were born here. Let's see, where do we go from there?
When you were a young child growing up in the sanitarium, tell us a little bit about life around that. There was a pretty nice home, as I recall, and then the sanatorium. And tell us a little bit about all the things your father really had to do in addition to being the physician there. He's probably the building manager and everything else too. But
no, there was a full staff. We had a head nurse who supervised the other nurses, and most of the nurses were names that you would recognize from here in town. Denny Edwards and Helena Erickson and Toddy Erickson was his secretary, and Ray Sent was the X-ray and lab person. And the patients were primarily from Iron County. There was a lot of TB came out of those underground iron mines, as far as we know. The treatment was rest and fresh air. So they didn't get out of their beds except to go to the bathroom. And the windows were open even in the winter time. So it was you're going to survive or you weren't going to survive, one way or the other.
would that fly in the face of modern medicine nowadays? Or?
Well, as soon as antibiotics came along after World War II, the treatment changed abruptly. And with the antibiotics, it gradually led to all of the TB hospitals being torn down. The one over in Superior is gone now. I don't think there's a TB sanatorium left in the state anymore, not even in the state san.
Well, in its heyday, how many patients?
Probably 70.
That many?
Yeah.
And how many doctors?
One.
One doctor?
Yep. Well, it's a disease where you don't need a lot of anything except to be fed and lie in bed and keep warm. There was no TV or anything like that, so the patients listened to the radios. They did have occupational therapists who would keep them busy making leather goods and things like that they could do while they were in bed. So that was one of the things they did. But it was a pretty quiet existence for them. So my dad not only took care of the inpatients, but then he was responsible for doing the tuberculin skin testing throughout all of the schools in the 3 counties every fall. So he and the county nurse from whichever county it was would go to each school in turn and manto test every kid in the school. So that kept him busy. And in addition, the patients who had been discharged from the hospital had to come back on a regular basis for follow-up chest x-rays and to be seen. And so he had outpatient clinics where he saw them and looked at their x-rays and decided if they needed anything further. And then when he was through with all of that, he did act as the Bayfield town doctor because there was no other doctor in town at the time. He limited himself pretty much to house calls in town after work hours. So he'd leave about 5 o'clock and get back 7, 8, depending on what time and how many people he had to see in their homes. But if people needed to be hospitalized, then they were sent either to Washburn or Ashland, depending on their choice, to have whatever needed to be done, because he could only do what he could do out of his black bag.
Sure.
Hey, what was his name?
Leonard W. Moody.
And your mother's name?
My mother's name was Ann Matkovich Moody.
Yeah. And where did the Moody's come from originally?
The Moody's originally came from Suffolk in England in 1495. They came to America in 1633 and lived in Massachusetts until 1900. And then they started heading west. But no, we're a Massachusetts family for many hundreds of years.
And what was your dad's father's and mother's name? And
My dad's father's name was Arnold Moody, Arnold Edwin, and my father's mother's name was Mary Beckwith Moody.
Beckwith.
And by that time they were living where? When your father was born?
Well, Arnold was a Presbyterian minister, and I think over his career, which was relatively short because he died young, I think he had 5 or 6 different pastorates, 3 in Iowa, 1 in Illinois, 2 in Illinois, and 1 in Oklahoma. So my dad was born in Waterloo, Iowa. One of his brothers was born in Ledo, Illinois.
What was your,
Another
where was
was
your dad born?
Dad was born in 1905. He was just a little bit younger than Ernie.
Then Ernie, right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My mother was the same age as Millie.
One day younger.
One day younger. Yeah.
Always tease my mother about being older.
What year was that?
1911.
1911. Oh.
Yeah.
Dave's
They,
dead.
both of those guys kind of robbed the cradle then, didn't they?
I guess they did.
They did.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
They did it, and right in the middle of the Depression too. They were. Your folks were married in 1930, and mine in 34, I think, something like that. So
It was Depression time for sure.
it was.
Right.
Yvonne, you know, I can still see you in the high school up there, and I can, you know, I've always told you I had vivid memories of your mother being the secretary there and
Right,
going to that
right.
office. But I also remember seeing you there as a younger lady in the school district. I don't know how old you were then. You must have been a junior or something when you were assigned to work a little bit, either with your mother or for.
In the office, you mean?
Yeah,
I worked there for 1 year.
after school.
I went to
Okay.
school in Milwaukee for a year. I went to a secretarial, you know, they called them business schools in those days. And I did that. It was called Spencerian College. Lived in Milwaukee for a year. By then, Dave and I had been going together a while. We sort of figured we were going to get married someday. And, you know, I came back up here after that year, and it was a very difficult time to find a
What
job.
year would that be? Like 1957, 58?
56 I finished. 56, 57.
All right.
Yeah. And I tried to get a job in Madison, and one job fell through, and so I needed a job. And so I worked at the cannery during the summer for Sig Anderson, you know, doing his
Okay.
book work. And then the school needed I guess they called it a secretary. So I worked there for a year. And Dave was in his anatomy lab one day with his lab partners, and one of them said, my wife's law office needs a secretary. So he called me, and I went down and interviewed and began working for one particular lawyer in a big law firm in downtown Madison, and it turned out to be wonderful. I really loved it, and I lived with the bookkeeper at that law office for a couple of years, and then the third year we got married, his last year of medical school. We got married, and it was really wonderful. It was a wonderful job. I loved it. So Millie took over at the
Well,
at the school then.
Well, at that point in time. So it had to be 58, I remember.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, she worked, I think, for Carl T, you know, CT, as we all called him, Mr. Larson. Worked for him first, and then Don Anderson came.
In 60.
And she worked for 22 years, I think, up there. She worked a long time
Yeah.
up there.
I gotta ask you, what the heck was life like in that Bayfield school district back in your heyday there? Can you fill me in a little bit?
Well, you know, we did get the reading, writing, and arithmetic. We did get that very well, but we didn't have a lot of options, you know, as far as high school was concerned. There weren't very many electives. But grade school was fine. Dave and I started first grade together. And his dad and my mom were the only parents who took their little darlings to school that first day. Both of them in tears in the back, probably,
Sure.
you know. And so we started first grade together. Then he skipped third grade, and I always said it was because he was too big for his seat, and his dad was
Yeah.
president of the school board.
Yeah.
Because I knew the timetables just as well as he did, I thought. But anyway, then he was a year ahead of me, and we were just friends, you know. acquaintances. He was a country kid, and I don't, my growing up in Bayfield was a lot different from his growing up here because I was on all over town all the time in many, many activities. We did a lot of things, a lot of musicals in those days, and the junior league, of which my mom and Ann Moody and Joyce Erickson and all of those ladies of that age were part of. They weren't the civic league, they were the junior civic league. And they did lots of things. They did the snowball at Christmas time, which was a formal dance. And I don't know if it was...
I remember stuff like that.
Yeah, and when we used to have the regattas here or the strawberry festivals, there was always a floor show at the pavilion. And I remember singing there, and because I used to take voice lessons from Mary Dexter
Oh,
Hepner
boy. Okay.
for years and years. And so I sang around, as they say. I think I started my singing career standing on Ole Holmes' ice cream counter in the old Holmes drugstore, singing for an ice cream cone, is the story that I hear, when I was about 4. And so,
Your vaudeville started there.
yeah, right.
Career in vaudeville.
Right. Mary Hepner said to me not long ago, I remember all the songs you sang, and I thought that was very sweet. But we used to do shows up in the courthouse, which of course now is the Park Service building. But remember, you were probably too young, but we even played basketball in that. That was the gym for many years. And so if there was any type of school function, it was held there.
Always there.
Right. And then as we got older into high school, there was just always something going on. If it wasn't with church things, it was with school plays, and you could be out and about. You could go anywhere and parents didn't have to worry,
Yeah.
I think the most dangerous thing we ever did was go out and steal apples.
Cooning apples, they call
Cooning
them.
apples, right.
Yes.
That was a big deal. And it was a wonderful place to grow up. It really was.
Beautiful little community.
And lots of characters. I always said we should write a book about the characters of Bayfield. A.C. Hugo and Joe Kovacevic and some of these crazy guys that were around. Some worked for my dad. It was
On the
fun.
lake.
It was really a magical time to grow up here, I think. Poor old Dave, he had to take the school bus every day, so he didn't.
Yeah,
Tell us about that ride to town.
my grade school and high school was different in that I was a country kid, which I think is probably even true now with the country kids. You don't have the mobility until you're old enough to be able to drive and own your own car, which in our days was there were very few of us that had cars. So I had my brother who was 3 years younger than me to play with, and a brother that's 6 years younger than me to play with. And that was about all. Up at the end of the road there was the 2 little Johnson girls, and then up
You
there
mean where the Heichel farm is there?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, well, it's where the place is that where they do the carvings and whatnot, right at the
Okay.
right across from Weber's Apple,
Sure. Okay.
and then up where carriers have their storage. That's where Laurie Nurse Senior lived, and Laurie Nurse Junior and Eddie were living there, and they were both a little bit older than I was, a couple of years. But that was my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Other than that, I didn't have anybody to do anything or play with, and so we read and we did things in the woods, and when we could get to town, we'd get to town, and then getting to school, of course, was catching the bus. And so I was, they ran the bus route so that it went around J, starting going north and then coming back from the south. So I was the last one, pretty near the last one on in the morning, but I had an hour plus ride in the evening going all the way around J and out Happy Hollow Road and partway out the Star Route, and then out 13 as far as as far as Kennedy's, and then finally they'd come back and I'd be the last one sitting on the bus waiting to get off.
Couldn't wait to
Wow.
Couldn't wait to get off.
5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, hungry.
Who-
And
the bus
afternoons, when you got there in afternoons, it wasn't so bad.
I
But
have
what
to
I
change
really
clothes.
disliked was,
Hang on, we gotta take a break.
42 because it, I was only 4, but I remember getting the shots, the typhoid shots. That was memorable.
Oh,
So I remember, up in the bank, which is where that T-shirt shop is now, the old,
Okay.
which was the bank then, and getting the typhoid shots. And I remember being taken out to stay with my grandma in Royce Point because both my mom and dad were busy trying to work with the flood stuff. And there was a big washout on 13, and then they had done just roads on either side of the washout that were just like one lane of dirt, and then there's the big hole, and then the other lane on the other side of it. And I remember that. But
so if you graduated in 55,
55.
you must have been born, what, 38?
37,
37.
October of 37. Right. Dave's 4 months older than I am.
So he's
He was in June.
June.
Yeah. Did you take the bells off so she doesn't do it again?
well, hopefully she won't.
Well, if she's looking for attention, she might.
Take them off.
Yeah. Well-trained little bugger.
She is.
Yeah, well,
Well,
sometimes
she wants her way.
she wants her way, exactly.
Yeah, she starts out with a little tingle, and if we don't come right away, it's a little harder, and pretty soon she brings them up and whacks them against the
She
wall.
just lifts them up with her
Demanding.
mouth and go, they
All
crash.
right, so enough of you.
Yeah.
We gotta wait for you.
Smart little bugger. Yeah.
Well, we
So-
left off, Dave, with you telling us a little bit about the school bus ride. Tell me
Okay.
a little bit about who's the bus driver in those days, and was that when Hadlands weren't in the business then? It had to be Iverson.
No, it was Hadlands were in the business, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was Dan Bellinger. I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure because it's been a long time, and it was 12 years, and it may have changed a few times in there.
I think you're right.
But I think it was Dan Bellinger.
Did Sig Anderson maybe drive school buses when we went on basketball trips? Do you remember that?
That could be.
Yeah. I just recall
I
maybe he
was-
was a fill-in, for the night trips to wherever we went for the basketball games. So.
The thing I liked least about the school bus route was waiting for the bus in the morning when it was a blizzard,
Oh, yes.
because you were standing up there with the full force of the wind and the snow blowing. There was the sign that we'd hide behind, the Pure Sand sign. We'd hide behind that. And we never knew whether the bus was late or it wasn't coming. So we'd wait, and we'd wait, and we'd wait. And sometimes the bus would come, and sometimes we'd give up and go home and say, no bus today, folks, and then we'd have a day off. But
No.
it still got pretty chilly standing up there with that wind blowing.
They didn't do a
Snow
very
blowing.
good job of letting us know in those days. I remember walking to school too, across the Iron Bridge with snow up to my hips practically, and obviously nothing plowed, and there wasn't going to be school, but for some reason there was no notification to the homes, I suppose the Ashland radio station might have had it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if they were broadcasting out of Bayfield at all in those days. I doubt it.
I don't think so.
No.
And you can imagine the old nine. Our phone number in those days was 92, and it would take forever to call parents. So
That's right.
Right,
And
right, yeah,
now
so,
they email everybody.
yes,
So,
not the same, much different.
who'd you chum around with in school, Dave? Who were pretty good buddies?
Well, schools classes were pretty small in those days, so we had 10 boys and 9 girls in my class, and so I chummed around with primarily the boys in my class, and some a class ahead and some a class behind. Mickey Moe, Arvin Paff,
Richard
Ronnie
Hoteri,
Johnson, Richard Hoteri,
Bill
Kenny
Green.
Griselle, Bill Green, Billy Hauser,
Billy was in my class.
Larry Fletcher.
Yeah.
that's pretty much everybody we had in the class.
I saw Larry Fletcher today.
You did?
Yes, driving his mail truck.
Oh.
He still drives it, brings the mail in
I
the
saw a
morning.
picture of him in high school. He doesn't look hardly any different now, does he?
He's just grayer is all.
Yes, greater.
That's right.
Looks
Yeah,
good.
he does.
Yeah,
He
he
does.
And Yvonne, who were some of your girlfriends? And
My
friends?
girlfriends in my class, I had Barbara Cahill, Ray Cahill's daughter, who was deceased. Shirley Powers, who was married Bill Moon. Unfortunately, she's deceased. Leanna Carlson, who was in a very bad car accident on Schindler's Corner when she was very young and became I think, a paraplegic or a quad, I can't remember, but anyway, she was really bad. And she lived a few years, but who else? Lois Anderson, Sig's daughter. The boys, Ronnie Johnson, Pappy we called him, Pappy Johnson, Billy Hauser. Well, we had, I think,
So you're in 57.
55.
55,
Right,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
You're ahead of Jimmy Edwards and that bunch.
Karen Pulaski was my maid of honor in our wedding, and she was probably only a freshman when I was a senior, maybe. So,
Okay.
yeah. And then Janet Erickson and some of those from that class, or class ahead of you. I
They're ahead
believe.
of me, yeah.
Yeah. Florence Defoe was in your class.
Florence Defoe was in my class. Jimmy Mitchell was in my class.
And who were some of the teachers in that era?
Era.
Favorite ones? in
Earl
particular?
Angie was one. I liked him a lot. Novak was the basketball coach.
Yeah, Jerry Novak
Jerry
was a
Novak.
basketball coach. And Ino Batan was probably
Let's
everybody's
take
favorite.
Let's take a break.
Johnny Sandstrom was in my class. Joanne Shepard.
See, I don't know the Shepherds. Who are they?
She was raised by the Chappies.
Okay.
She and a sister. And I'm not sure.
She's married to Freddie Hendrickson.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Okay, now I know.
But I don't think there were any Shepherds here. I'm
No.
not sure
No, they-
how that all transpired, but she was raised by the Chappies.
Okay.
There were any number of people that were in grades who had lived with people who didn't have the same last name, like Tori Selfers, I remember. And Eldon,
Jessie Duns.
Jesse Duns,
She lived with the Ericksons.
and Eldon Williams. Eldon Williams lived with the Olsons. So we just know they lived with them and must have had some relationship, but we never did know what
Never
it
knew.
was. and
Yeah,
things
you
like
haven't
that.
thought twice about
No,
it.
never thought twice about it.
It wasn't a big deal. Still
Right,
wasn't.
right,
No.
yeah.
So Dave, you went to Bayfield schools here and you got out, and then tell us a little bit about what you decided you wanted to get into, to do some detective work with looking at X-rays and radiology and that type of thing. Tell us about where you went to school and how it all went for you.
I went to the University of Wisconsin, Madison. I got the $100 scholarship that the valedictorian gets,
Oh, okay.
so that helped a lot in those days. I started
What
out.
did UW cost in those days? for
Oh
tuition?
gee, I don't remember,
Remember?
but no,
Wasn't much.
it did help at least.
300 a semester.
Something
maybe?
like that. That's
Yeah, I was
right.
going to say about 900 a year, I
Yeah.
seem to recall,
Yeah.
because I considered going, and I remember trying to figure out I had a scholarship too for it was more than 100 I got anyway. Anyway,
Mine was 100.
but it wouldn't have cost much more to go 4 years to Madison than it cost me to go to the private school in Milwaukee. But anyway, but that's another story. Yeah, you continue.
Well, I ended up at the University of Wisconsin. I went to engineering school. I had always thought I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer or something like that. And I quickly learned that I didn't have the math background to do that. I think that I got as far as advanced algebra in Bayfield, and we didn't have any trig, we didn't have calculus, we didn't have geometry. So
You were
So I was like 2 years behind all my classmates down there, and so I managed to keep my average grade point up enough that first semester to get the heck out of engine school. So I transferred to pre-med, and so after 3 years, I had my grades good enough to get into medical school. After 3 years instead of waiting for. Went to University of Wisconsin Medical School. Spent a couple of summers in Madison doing research in laboratories and in the X-ray department. And so then I had decided by about then that I wanted to go into radiology. I had the idea of maybe becoming a general practitioner or an internist, but even then, which was in the early 1960s, there was too much to know to be able to do a good job in those fields. So I figured I had to have something that was a little more restricted. And I liked the detective work, as I said, and my father did read a lot of chest x-rays being in TV, and that gave me a little background there. So
Kind of saw a few of them in your own life.
I did, and the chairman of the department, John Jewell, had been in general practice up here in this area before he went into radiology. And so I just ended up wanting to do that. So I took a year of internship in San Francisco and applied while I was there to have my assignment changed from being a general medical officer at Fort
Jackson.
No.
Oh, you were going to?
We were going to go to Kansas, to the big Army base
Fort
in Kansas,
Riley,
Fort Riley,
Kansas.
Kansas.
Yeah.
And so I tried to get it to be changed to a radiology assignment somewhere, and at the very last moment I did get a change and was assigned to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where I spent 2 years doing radiology with no training. I had a supervisor that was a trained radiologist.
Okay.
And so I learned a lot, and before I even went to my residency in Minnesota, I'd gotten a lot under my belt as far as learning where things were and what you called things and things like that.
Some real hands-on
Yeah,
experience.
some hands-on experience. So it was then to the University of Minnesota, 2.5 years of residency, a year on the faculty, then I went into private practice. And so we lived in Minneapolis from 1964 to 2003 when I finally retired.
Okay, interesting. What hospitals were you associated? You had your own practice, but did you have to make a run to, Central City Hospital or anything like that?
No, in those days there weren't usually private practice offices. Radiologists practiced in hospital departments.
Okay.
So we didn't have to go anywhere else. We just had to put up with the constant hospitals merging. So I started out at Swedish Hospital, and pretty soon it merged with the hospital next door and became Swedish St. Barnabas Hospital. And then they decided to build a building in between to really merge them, and they changed the name then to Metropolitan Medical Center. And then they merged with Mount Sinai Hospital, which is like 3-4 blocks away, and it became Metropolitan Mount Sinai Medical Center. And then they sold the whole complex to Hennepin County, and we all moved over and joined the people at Abbott Northwestern. So,
What a story.
so I've been in a
You
lot.
have your wheelbarrow every time you went there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except you forgot about the 4 years we spent in California during that time.
Oh.
At the end of the final sale.
We were fortunate that we had my internship in San Francisco, and we fell in love with San Francisco, and I was able to get a California license while I was there, which is a hard thing to come by unless you're actually in residence. And so when the time came for me to finish my residency, I had a choice of 2 jobs. One was in California and one was in Minneapolis, and we chose Minneapolis for family reasons, so we'd be near to Ernie and my folks and whatnot. But we always said, well, when the kids grow up, we'll go back. So when the youngest one went off to college, we did go back. And we lived in Santa Cruz for 3 years plus. One day we opened up the local newspaper, and the hospital I was working at had been sold to its competitor next door, and they were closing our hospital. So that's how we learned that we'd better find a new location. So that about that time, my former partners who still liked me, even though I'd left them, invited me back because they had a need for somebody.
Sure.
And so we moved back to Minneapolis. So we were in the San Francisco Bay Area from 1988 to 1992.
Okay.
Long enough to go through the 1989 earthquake in Santa Cruz,
yeah.
6 miles from the epicenter.
Oh, wow.
It was,
You might have crossed paths.
yes.
I lived in San Francisco in the Bay Area from 68 until 95.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay.
there.
Yeah, you were there.
You were there. That was quite something. We had earthquake insurance and probably were the only ones on our block who did, because we were from the Midwest and we thought we should have it. And all the native Californians kind of blew that off. They didn't have it. So we ended up, we had a fairly new home, and it withstood the earthquake pretty well, but cosmetic stuff.
Cracks in the wall, maybe.
Yeah.
Not even that much, but I think we paid one premium, and they reimbursed us $90,000
Oh, boy.
for the. So that was rolling the dice. Luckily that time.
Oh, God, you had an angel over your shoulder.
Stupidly, and all the other people that lived out there, they had their grand pianos, running out through the doors and out the.
Ovens would pop out of the wall, and a lady across the street lost 12 place settings of antique bowed china that her mother-in-law had given to her. And so,
But none of them had
we
insurance.
kind of all learned that you better be serious about this. And Dave talks about having bought a bunch of heavy-duty picture hooks after this, because pictures would jump off the hooks and land on the floor, or mirrors would.
And smash. Yvonne, I want to go back. We haven't spent a lot of time, spent some time talking about Ernie and the family. Let's talk about Millie and the family a little bit. She was a wonderful person, and is a great lady. And tell us a little bit about your mom's side of the family.
Well, as Ernie was 100% French in every way, Millie 100% Swedish.
Okay.
And he always teased her about being, 100% Swedish, but stubborn, he would say. But her family was in Ashland, and they were farmers, basically.
South side of town or Mason?
Off Sanborn Avenue,
Okay.
out south of town.
What's her maiden name?
Anderson.
Millie Anderson.
And
There's
she
some Andersons down there.
Yeah, she graduated from high school in 1929, Ashland High School, and her father worked for the railroad also, so he wasn't really committed to farming as much as they ended up having a dairy farm. So when she grew up, it was on a dairy farm, and then her first job was over here working for Mr. Elmore, I believe,
Howard.
and as a bookkeeper. And that's where she met Ernie, because he was fishing out of that dock there, and they were married a year later. So
Didn't Ernie run the Chinook for Howard Elmore in those days? Did Ernie buy the Chinook after that?
Yes.
David knows this history pretty well.
Actually, Ernie didn't buy it. Millie and Ed Sausley in partnership.
Ed Sausley. Who is
I
he?
think he was from Ashland.
Ashland, and he had a meat market or
He had a
something
meat
over
market.
there.
And I think that was he had more credit than Ernie did, and so Ernie was the operator, but Millie and Ed Sausley owned the boat.
They're the financiers.
Yeah, they were, and ultimately Ernie bought it, and but yes, he did get it from Elmore when Elmore was going bankrupt.
Yeah, Dad said Elmore came in 28 and
Yeah.
formed the Bayfield Fish Company.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Dad said that the reason that Howard Elmore came here was he saw Otto Kuntz out in the bay here lifting pond nets, and he thought he could make a killing just like that in the business. And that's when he had the building constructed and all that stuff. So a little sideline to your story.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fun having my dad around you because I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and he
Absolutely.
remembers. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Ernie did a lot of different things with the Chinook. You know, he went around to the islands and collected fish. He ran it as a
He used it as a ferry
Ferry.
boat back and forth to the island for a while.
Did he collect fish for Henry Johnson Sr. too?
that was one of the names mentioned on the biography thing that you've done.
Right.
Yeah.
Henry Johnson.
Oh, yeah, my dad mentioned that because I'm writing this other book now, and I said, tell me about Henry. So well, it's one of the things I believe that Ernie did was, hauled fish from him.
He did,
Yeah,
along with other people too. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So he, that was, Millie worked for him, for Elmore, and then when that job ended because of his, the
Demise.
crash,
Yeah.
Right.
She worked wherever she could find a job, and always as a stenographer, bookkeeper, secretary, whatever.
She worked for the Bayfield Power and Light Company for
Okay.
a while,
For Mr. Okerstrom.
for Mr. Okerstrom.
And worked for, oh gosh, a lot of different people in town here.
Oh,
Mr.
O'Malley.
Walksmith,
O'Malley, Walksmith.
J.P. O'Malley, Mr. Walksmith. She was very ambitious. And I think, knowing Millie and her personality, I'm sure she was probably the best secretary anybody could have. She was very methodical, thorough, methodical.
Attention to detail. Type
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I wish I had inherited a little more of that, maybe. But she's,
You got a little point in you there. That
I think
likes
so.
A little gregarious, maybe.
yeah.
She started a diary the year she graduated from high school, and she kept it up until she couldn't keep it up anymore.
Really.
Yes,
Well, that is attention.
that is attention to detail. And not only that, but we have found such things in our effects as books that list how much coal they had to buy each month, each year. I mean,
Or oil, or the
every
engines on the
boat,
boats.
every boat, she has the engine serial number.
Have you ever thought about having that published? Is it still available?
Oh, sure.
What I mean is, it probably who would take the
Well,
time to do that?
What she
Available.
did
We've not thrown it out.
in her
Yeah.
later
No.
years, when she was alone, Ernie was gone, she went through all those diaries, and they were 5-year diaries, so they were just little paragraphs.
Sure.
They weren't huge amounts of information, but if there was a storm, she
Kind of
wrote
like
it down.
like Mrs. Tate's diaries.
Yeah. So anyway, she, on legal pads, wrote the pertinent things from all these years, including all the deaths in Bayfield and the births.
One legal pad is deaths, all in order. One legal pad is births, all in order. One legal pad is marriages, all in order.
Oh, boy.
That's a treasure.
I know. We're gonna give
You
it.
better
to
get
the-
working on that.
We're gonna give it to the Heritage Society and let somebody else work on it.
And through all of that, her love of Bayfield and her never wanting to be anywhere else but here was always very prominent in her conversations, and she just adored this place. She really
What
did.
kind of things were in her diary? I mean,
Well, at the very beginning of their marriage, it was a lot of went to Ashland to have dinner with Roy and Elsie, Roy being her brother. That would be, that
be
would
all it'd
be
be for that
all.
day.
Or ferry first time to from Madeline today. Or ice came in, or lake froze over today. Births, of course, and that sort of thing.
Change 5 diapers wasn't in there. Type
No,
of thing.
no.
so it really wasn't personal about herself. and
No.
about-
Oh, no, it was
Not so
events.
much.
It was like
events.
there was
Events oriented.
notation,
Yeah,
weather.
yeah,
And,
right.
Well, it'd be personal in the extent that we moved to Superior today for the fishing season, and we're going to stay at the Hotel Superior or whatever it was.
Yeah,
So
that sort of thing.
That sort
but
of
she wouldn't
personal
say how
thing.
she felt about moving.
No,
no,
no.
oh, no.
It was no journal kind of thing at
No,
all. It
yeah.
was just
It was
facts.
facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grandmother was the same.
Was she?
Yeah, the weather was first.
Yeah, well, there's
Yeah.
a lot about the weather.
As Millie aged and things were she wasn't remembering things all that well and all, she would put in little notations like, dusted up the house today. Or, you know.
Boy, she must have been a creature of habit though, to be able to go to that thing. She
Oh,
probably
yeah.
went to it every day at 5 o'clock too, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, you know. It was an amazing thing that
And
she
she
did.
would never let us see them.
Never?
She would never let us see them. We didn't know where they were. She said, "You're going to bury those with me."
Yeah, I want
We
those in
didn't.
the casket with me, she would say.
We didn't, however. We do have them.
Good.
There's not any little
Yeah.
fun stories.
Well, and
Yeah.
your children would appreciate that.
Yes. One of
I've read them all from cover to cover, and extracted what I wanted for. That's where I got a lot of the information that I had know about them that I have in their genealogies.
Okay.
That's the one thing in reading these things that Dave has done, their biographies or genealogies, whatever, is how many times they moved during that period of time when things were really tough here. And he was peddling ice to make a living. I mean, you know, they both just did odd jobs, whatever they could do. And they were always moving for one reason or another.
Did she mention there when the seabird hit the mermaid outside of
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes.
That was not
And when
good.
the Johnson boy was burned
Yeah.
up in Duluth,
Yeah.
burned to death as a watchman, yeah.
Yeah, that was
They ended
very
up
sad.
paying that family a lot of money over the years.
Yeah, it was very sad. He was the night watchman, and there was a fire on the
boat.
Chinook, right?
Yeah.
Which Johnson was it? A Bayfield Johnson?
Right.
Yeah.
It would be
Like Jingling Johnson's family? That
No.
I do not
No.
know. I
No,
would
not
have to
that
go back
Johnson.
and look. It's been a long time since I looked at that.
will be kind of fun to. I gotta now. You piqued my curiosity here. Now.
Leonard.
Before you leave, I'll give you a copy of their genealogies or their family histories.
That'd be fun. Very nice.
Yeah, it's very interesting, but the fact that they moved as much as they did, and
Well, I always had a crush on your mother. Even as a little kid, she always to me was like drop dead gorgeous.
she was pretty.
Wasn't she pretty
She
girl?
was
Yeah,
pretty
she
girl.
was
Yeah,
very pretty,
I look at pictures of her and I think, wow, you know, just very, very pretty, and not a lot of makeup, just very pretty.
Just a naturally good-looking
Yeah.
Swedish woman.
Yeah.
That's
I can see why Ernie fell in love with her. There.
Yeah, that's right. It didn't take him long either.
No, you had half a brain on your shoulder. That would
Right.
work, you know.
Right, and they were very devoted to each other.
Yeah.
They really were. It was a nice marriage, I think.
You have a nice sister, Marilyn.
I do.
Tell
I
us a
do.
little bit about your sister and bring her into your how she was important in your life too.
Well, Marilyn is 9 years younger than I am, so when she was born, I was sort of put out. I thought, who needs a baby here? You know, I was the queen of the house, sort of. But no, she, you know, she was just a little kid when I left here. So we weren't real close for all those years, but as an adult, I certainly am close to her, and you know that we're both adults, and she's a very, very interesting lady. She's a very good nurse, I know that, and worked for many years at Abbott Northwestern in the surgery department doing hearts. They did not necessarily transplants, but bypass surgeries and that sort of thing. She was married and has a daughter who is now about 30 years old, Jane, and now she has a granddaughter. And Marilyn was divorced many years ago and has never remarried. And she has been living in my mother and dad's house here in Bayfield, but she's going to be moving now.
Is she going to sell that place?
It's for sale now.
Should pick her up for the family doc. In your mind or not? That place is a very old building.
It
shows
is.
up in a lot of photos.
It is.
About 1895, approximately, the best we can figure.
Yeah.
And when did your folks move into that house?
I was
You remember?
born there.
Oh, you were.
You mean I was born in the hospital in Ashland, but they moved in 1937 for the first time. So I was a baby in that house, and then they moved out because they were renting it, and for one reason or another, Mrs. Benton, Marjorie Benton's mother-in-law,
Owned it.
owned it.
All right.
And when she retired, she came back to live in it, and Ernie and Millie had to move.
I remember when Lee Benton was there. Because we live right next to you.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I remember him being there, and I couldn't figure what, I was young enough, and
Sure.
I didn't they had
Yeah.
the big one lot between us.
Yep.
Yes.
And I never went up there, but I remember playing with Marilyn as a kid.
Sure.
Yeah.
She's just a little bit older than me. But, and then all of a sudden the Benton family's there. So
Yeah.
that's the
That's-
story.
That's the
of-
story, right?
And then Ernie and Millie built where Greenlees lived, and now
Sternets live
live.
now, right in front of the house.
that's
that
the house
Marilyn's
they
in.
built, and they were living in that when we got married in '61.
They built that, not
they
the one
built it.
Punksy Myers built.
No, Punksy bought it from my mom and dad.
Okay, got it now. I was thinking Punksy built it,
No,
but
no, that was where they moved after they had to get out of the house across the street. And then when the Bentons decided to sell, they bought and moved right back.
isn't that a story?
So
Yeah, and then they did a lot of upgrading and lived there until, you know, forever. They're still,
Well, it's a beautiful little home.
yeah, it
Really?
is.
So that's, you really grew up in that house.
I absolutely grew
Yeah.
up in that house.
Right.
Yeah, David and I were married when they were in the house in front, but yeah, when I graduated from high school, I mean, there are pictures in the yard of that house. So.
That must have killed you to look across the street and be in this other home at that point in time.
Well, you know, by then I was living away.
Yeah.
And then Marilyn, you're asking about her. She and my mom were alone a lot because Ernie was then doing his tug captaining and was all over the Great Lakes, dredging.
Did he and little Henry Johnson and those guys all pack it together, or how did he work for Zenith?
He worked for Zenith for a while. Yep, in Duluth.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. That's on
but primarily he worked in the Down Lakes. He was with Dunbar and Sullivan out of Detroit. He was in Mount Pleasant working. He spent a couple of years in the Sioux when they cut the rock cut deeper. He was in Rochester. And he primarily worked with his nephew, Roger Stahl.
Okay.
Because Roger, by that time, was already in the Union in Detroit and was captain of a tugboat with Gaelic Tugboat. And so he got Ernie into the Union.
When are we talking now? What's the time?
1958,
Yeah.
something like that. It's about the time Ernie hauled his boats out on the East Dock and burned them and went off to work.
Is that what he did?
Because the
Yeah.
fishing had gotten so
Yeah.
bad here that
What-
he, you know, with the lamprey eel coming in, that he just finally quit fishing and
Couldn't deal with it.
did this towards the end of the 50s. Yeah. And it was very nice because it built up a retirement for them that he wouldn't have had otherwise. And
Yeah.
although he was gone a lot, sometimes my mother and Marilyn would go and live with him on the shores of Lake, or the St. Mary's River.
St. Mary's River,
Yeah, over by Sault Ste.
Sault
Marie.
Ste. Marie.
Yep.
Or Mount Clemens. They spent
Mount
the
Clemens,
summer in
Michigan.
Mount Clemens, Michigan. So, and then Ernie also, they worked out having longer shifts on the boats. They worked it out among themselves, and then every third week he would come home
Yeah.
and fly into Duluth or to Ironwood or
They
somewhere.
had 3 crews, and so the crews, instead of working 8-hour shifts, would work 12-hour shifts
Sure.
with one guy gone for a week.
Was there any other Bayfield boys on with Dunbar and with Gaelic at all?
Not that I
Not
know
that we
of.
know of.
So only Roger
Yeah.
Stahl.
Yep. Yep. Just Roger and Ernie.
Ernie did lots of things on the lakes that I really had forgotten. Of course, one of the things is he brought the outer island up here. He and
For
Roger
Lullaby?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was captain and Roger was the first mate when they brought the lullaby.
Yes.
Well, they actually got involved first when Lullaby was hauling logs from Bruce Mines down across Lake Huron, down through Green Bay to Appleton.
Okay.
And that's what they first used the LCT for.
Yeah.
And after they did that once or twice, and then when it came time that they wanted to move it up and bring it up here, they got the two of them to go back. And I don't know who else, but there was a crew of other guys from here that all went down there and brought it back up through the lakes, brought it here.
That must have been quite a journey.
Yes.
My
Well,
God.
yeah, it was.
So it was Roger and Ernie that
Yep.
brought the outer island, then called the Pluswood.
La
Then called the
Pluswood, right,
Pluswood.
I got
exactly.
one photo with it, the name Pluswood.
Do you?
Yep.
Yeah. I still sometimes call it the Pluswood because that's
Same thing.
what it always was.
It
Yeah.
gets ingrained in our heads.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did Ernie ever fish on the islands? On the islands, did he ever, fish off of camps or anything like that?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, never was involved
No,
in fish camps.
the only other
No.
place he fished from was in Duluth, out of Duluth. Yeah,
But I know the Chinook and those boats picked up fish,
they did.
similar to what the C.W. Turner did.
And the
Apostle
Apostle Islands.
Yeah.
The Penguin,
Yeah.
you know,
right.
Well, at any one time, he'd have 3 boats or more sitting down here in his slip. You know, what's now the Bataan property
right.
was he and Philip. That was the LaPointe brothers.
The Newpie, do you remember
What were
that?
the,
The
what were the
Newpie, sure.
boats?
Yeah.
List the boats. That they had.
Oh, well, there was the Chinook, the South Twin, the Seabird, the Newpie,
Dissendot.
what else? There are more than that. I just can't think of them right at the moment. Offhand.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Was
They
he a
would
boat builder too?
No.
Oh, no.
But the Dissendot your grandfather built, Mr.
For
Mulcahy.
Art Crone.
Yeah.
What's in it, Frank? A little bit of this and a little bit
Yeah.
of
Well, yeah.
that. What?
Yeah, that's right.
It's wonderful history, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
a wonderful
Well,
history.
we have a connection here, folks.
Yeah, we do.
Well,
Yes.
Through a
But-
boat, but
Yeah.
But you said he burned the boats. Could you tell that story?
You know, I only read about it in Millie's diaries
you?
because we were not here.
But
Yeah.
you must have heard about it.
Oh yes, it was just a matter of getting rid of them. That nobody wanted
Nobody
to
would
buy
buy
them
'em.
anymore, and it costs money to keep them at somebody's slip, and they deteriorate if they're not used, and so I must have broken his heart, really.
the
Well,
boats
that's
that
what I'm
he,
thinking.
the boats that he burned, do you know which ones they were?
I could look it up. I know, for instance, the South Twin is out at Peterson's.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's one over here by the
Kenny's.
Ernie LaPointe boat ramp, and I can't remember what the name of it is. But I could look and see.
There's
which
the
one
Bobby there and the Egerson there.
Yeah, there's another one there.
I
think
know
that he
the
was-
Chinook he burned for sure. I
Okay.
do know that because that was emotional for
It
him.
had to be.
It was
When you
very
think
emotional.
about that
Yep.
moment of
Yeah.
ending
Yeah.
a life of fishing.
Yeah. But I don't know the other one that he burned. Maybe the Dissendot.
I don't know that there was more than one.
What
All
year
I
would
know
that
is
have been?
Oh, that would be about the time that he left the fishing industry, I suppose, the late
58.
50s.
Late 50s.
Yeah,
Dad quit in '62. It was
Yeah.
over for him.
yeah,
Yeah.
And a lot of them had, canceled out of it
right.
Right.
prior.
Yeah, it was really a very hard time then. And of course, there was no sailing here then either. These sailboats were non existent here. So Bayfield had nothing, really.
That was our swimming beach right there. That's
It's
what-
our
the
swimming
riding
beach.
platform
Right,
and-
right. We spent many hours down there. Yeah.
Did you have enough strength to go up to that high diving board and dive off there, Yvonne?
Oh, I used to go up there and then be scared to death, and I'd hold my nose and jump.
Yeah.
I never did dive.
Now you see, I was a country kid. I didn't even know you had a diving platform.
Boy, they really sequestered you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had no way to get to town unless your dad would bring you to town
Or
or
you could
something.
walk.
Or I could walk the railroad tracks,
Right.
but why walk the railroad tracks on the hopes you'll see somebody you know? So
But I could swim right down here anyway.
that's right,
You could
exactly. I
swim
had
where
my
you
own
were.
little beach that I
Right.
could
Yeah.
go to, but yeah, it was very different living in the country like you do now, and we're living in town. We had different experiences. They mixed at school, but then you took off for the islands. She stayed in town, and I went out in the country and
That's right.
didn't see anybody for
Yeah.
all summer.
Well, that's about the way it was, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a cabin out at Frog Bay. My
Yeah.
dad and Philip had built a cabin out there, and it was wonderful. It was just a big old one-room log cabin.
I remember
But
it like yesterday.
That was a place where we gathered as high school kids, and we swam out there, and he'd bring the boats out there. He always had a little dock built, and
Julian Nelson and them would go out there for buttermilk pancakes and
there were mighty big parties out there, as I understand. I remember one
There were
story my
parties we
dad
weren't
told.
invited to.
Yeah, we weren't invited.
Joyce Erickson.
Uh-huh. and I remember there was one where probably Joyce and Mel were there, and whomever, and
Eva Wadsmith and
had-
Julian.
yeah, and they had Eleanor Knight out there, and Eleanor Knight heard the word rabbit mentioned. Well, they were cooking rabbits because they used to snare rabbits in the wintertime, which if I'd understood what he was doing, I'd have been upset. But anyway, they would snare rabbits, and so they were cooking up a big rabbit stew kind of thing. And I remember my dad saying, she said, well, there are a lot of legs in there. And he said something like, well, we just cooked the drumsticks or something like that, trying to tell Eleanor this wasn't rabbit.
Yeah, they heard her freak
I don't
out.
know why I remember that story, but
A multi-legged chicken.
yeah.
Six-legged chicken.
But they used to have poker parties out there. They played smear out there. And every Labor Day, Ann Moody would order a fresh ham through the sand, the purveyors who came to the sand. And Dave would do a spit, and he would stand out there all day churning this
You
fresh
did, Dave?
ham.
Yep.
Yeah.
Made a hand.
That was probably when he was in college. He was
spitting.
here for the summer. But,
a
then
lot
the
of
whole
work.
gang would gather out there. It was just a wonderful place to be. And
Where exactly was this then?
across from Oak Island, if you were to go out, instead of staying on 13, you take, what is that, Blueberry?
Yeah, it used to be the old government road. In
Yeah,
that case.
yeah, and you take, so instead of going on 13 towards Corny, you go straight through the rest of Red
Right
Cliff.
at the casino, you take Blueberry Road and you just go to the end.
And then it forks off to another little road, and you take that, and then finally you get to a road that goes down along the
right.
lake to the right. And he leased the land for Mr. Melberg from Ashland. He never did own the property that the cabin was on, which in later years caused problems as the generations died off. And
Is that who owned that other little building? That was the Melberg
Melberg's,
family.
and the Melberg daughter Edna married a Smith from Ashland, so the Smith Melberg names were the two names that were connected with that. And when Millie, after Ernie died, Millie just was concerned about the liability out there, and by that time there was a problem getting there because the land was now claimed by the Native Americans, and they didn't want to have people going through there. There was something that happened, and so she just sort of let it go.
I remember that was with the Laferniers were making a big stink out there at
Yeah.
that point in time.
Yeah.
Right, and she ended up turning it over to a Melberg grandson, I
Just
believe.
abandoned it, or
Just abandoned it so that she was no longer liable because it was being broken into all the time.
I remember that.
It could be a fire, and she'd be liable. So she just didn't want any more of that. So
In the early '80s, Dean Halverson and I and Frank, we used to run down there with the snowmobiles because we fish on the ice out
Sure.
there. And I remember I think Ernie was down there a little bit then because we used to see him once in a while.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. He'd
Yeah.
be here in the winter. He didn't
Yeah.
die until '88, so
Yeah, and he used to
Yeah.
invite us in there, and I can remember.
you could
everything.
warm up. Yeah.
Yeah,
he went out there every day when he could. When he was in town,
Yeah.
he was out there at
He
least
just
once a
loved it.
day,
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
So when Ernie was here in the winters, what did he do in the winter then here? I mean,
Nothing. Well, when he was still
The
fishing,
off-
he was ice
off-season.
fishing.
right.
But when he was tugging, he was just off. There wasn't. He didn't have a job. He was.
He just kind of
but-
enjoyed being home.
But
Yeah.
it was fairly short because he was working down the lakes where it didn't freeze as badly, and so he often wouldn't be home until Thanksgiving, and he'd be gone by 1st of February.
Oh,
He was on the lake the night that Fitzgerald went down.
He was.
They were towing barges back to Marquette? Somewhere
Yeah.
in there. He was on Lake Superior that night. So he talked about it being pretty nasty where
That
he
must have
was
been
too. Yeah.
Wild night.
Yeah. And that was what, the something of November
November.
14th or something of
Yeah,
November.
middle of November.
So then he was on his way home then. So like Dave said about Thanksgiving. And Millie was still working, and so he would do the cooking. He loved to cook.
Yeah.
And he would do the cooking, and he'd take her to school. He'd pick her up after school, or probably pick her up at noon too. Kind of was her chauffeur.
And visit with his friends around town. Catch
Yeah, he
up
was
with.
he
yeah,
liked
he
it.
was a great.
Go down to Morty's
Yep.
or
He liked
who would he
together.
hang out with?
Well, over the
Who
years.
wouldn't he?
Yeah, if you want to go, you know,
Anybody want to talk?
way back, there was Yelly Edwards,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris's dad,
Elmer.
Yelmer.
Yelmer.
But they called him Yelly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and Ernie opened a fish store one time in Ironwood, Michigan. They thought they were going to peddle fish down there. I don't think it lasted long. But they used to gather for coffee. You know, Ed Erickson, Julian, I mean,
yeah.
just any of the old timers, as we called them then, would gather for coffee in the morning, and he'd always come home with some gossip. Mel Erickson.
They were all good
Where,
friends.
where would they
good
gather
friends.
for coffee?
Well, whatever was open, you know, the pier I think was open a lot then.
Sure, yeah.
You know, it's been open many years.
Well, the community,
Community
cafe.
cafe.
That was probably one of the big
Yeah.
Which is
locations.
now where the Big Water
Yes, right.
I was
Yeah.
looking through an old cookbook of my mother's this last few days, and she's got a lot of handwritten recipes in it. And one of them is from the gal who cooked at that place, and it's a cookie recipe.
Margaret?
Yes, Margaret. Yeah. And so, you know, he just kept busy. They came down to the Twin Cities to visit us and to visit Maryland a lot for the holidays, that sort of thing. We came up here. Our boys loved coming up here. They are very, very attached to Bayfield. And I think more than anybody, the selling of Millie's house is going to affect them.
Tell them
Probably
to get some money out.
Yeah,
Buy it
that's
together.
right. They should.
They used to, their grandfather Ernie would do things with them that they didn't tell us about until later because they knew we wouldn't have been pleased.
And probably we haven't heard it all.
I don't think we've heard it all yet.
Well, I think Ernie had a little bit of a rascal.
Oh, yes.
personality.
Yeah, absolutely.
He
He's
did.
a rascal.
He did. You know, and he didn't spare the words. And he didn't have a lot of patience. Like, let's get the hell out of here, you know.
We did get him to cut down on the number of swear words per sentence when the kids were around.
Well, 'cause
He
it must have been something when he and Mel Erickson got together.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
Well, they were both cut out of the same cookie mold.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
A gifted personality, I would say. but-
Yeah, and you know, we read Connie Frostman's book about growing up here as the daughter of a fisherman, a family, you know, many
nice
children.
book.
A lovely book, and it certainly brought back a lot of memories for me. And it also proved to me that I didn't have half of the experiences that she had. Because Ernie wouldn't take me out on those fish boats. And I think that's why the language wasn't good, you know. But he just didn't think that was a place for girls.
You didn't have to pick fish in the fall?
Oh, yeah, I
Oh,
did
yeah.
that.
We'd pick fish.
Well, we did anything to get out of school, you know, that was. Yes, we did pick fish.
Okay.
And I would go down and work in his sheds. And
So, and whoever was jobbing to him then, he'd set his own nets.
Yeah, he had 4 boats fishing at one time, so you know he had pretty much filled up the dock. But
Yeah.
he'd also buy from other people, so we did that. We picked fish.
And that piece of property is actually Bay Fisheries now, but it was LaPointe Fisheries before.
Right,
Point Brothers Fisheries. Yep.
Right.
and they had an office there, and they had Joe LaBelle invented some sort of machine that took the heads off and gutted the herring.
Oh,
And so you would put the herring into these brackets, and this thing would go around, and it would go and slit the belly. It's amazing, and I think there must have been water that would wash the innards out of the fish too. That
I've
was
never
quite
heard
something.
this story. I thought I'd heard it all. I haven't heard the story of
Well,
Joe LaBelle's.
yeah. Now I don't know how to find out more about that other than my own memory. All
Morris
I-
McCann might know.
Morris would know.
My dad
Sure.
might know.
Your
Yeah.
dad would know.
I'll
too.
ask Dad about that.
And I'm not sure that it was totally successful, but I think I remember it running, and I remember being upgraded to that job from the picking out of the nets.
Oh, you get to put it in the
I was
machine?
because I was the owner's daughter. I could
I
do
see.
that. So,
Who else was working by your side in that when you were
oh,
picking
high
herring?
school kids. Once you were 16, but people like Mary Niffen and Seal Schultz and, you know, the ladies around town, you know.
They needed a lot of help because there was,
Yeah.
you know, tons and tons and tons of herring coming in all at the same time from
Yeah.
all of these various boats. And just the picking of the herring alone took a lot of people. And then somebody had to gill and gut them. And some people, like me, had to work in the freezer and put them on the coils and put them in the boxes on the coils. And there were people then taking them out of the coils and
Yeah.
putting them in trucks. I mean, there was lots of work for 3 weeks.
I don't know what your dad caught that year, but I know my dad said his biggest year fishing ever with a herring was 1946,
Yeah.
and he had 111 ton,
Well-
220,000 pounds. And if you're
Yeah.
fishing 4 boats, I'm going to guess that the LaPointe brothers probably quadrupled that.
Yeah.
Or close to
It was really something that they did.
This is in the fall of the year, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
in
November.
November. And, you know, he sold fish. They sent it to the armed forces during the war. They, you know, salted it and sent it. And then they sold it ultimately as mink food.
I got a question. Did he make any money at it? My dad said he never, even though they caught that volume of fish, it was never like they ever got even close
No.
to being ahead of the game.
Oh, I think they made money. I think that it was probably their livelihood for many months of the year that took them through. Because the other fishing was not that predictable,
Yeah.
the
By
summer
then,
fishing.
particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
the
was falling off by then.
herring was great. You know, they did well.
Well, Dad said they were getting 60 to $70 a ton in them days. So I mean, you're talking 2 to 5 cents a pound
Yeah.
for mink feed. And, you know,
Yeah.
and Dad said it was all that work. He says we had really nothing other than
Yeah.
you know we got by every year.
Miserable work because it was so cold, and those boats would come in with the ice hanging from them. You remember? It was
Yeah.
awful.
I
Gunnels,
Yeah.
water right up
Yeah.
up to the
Just-
gunnels and ice all
Yeah.
over them. And
I made $1 an hour picking fish. Boy, that was big bucks. I felt really good because I got paid as much as Patty O'Day an hour.
I was trying to remember how we got paid. I thought, was it by the hour?
I got paid by the hour. Some
Yeah.
people got paid by the box.
Well, we had too many in a row throwing, so I don't think they could have. It had to have been by the hour. But I just remember everything smelled like fish in Bayfield. And you'd go into the movie theater and it smelled like fish. Yeah.
Including, huh?
yeah, fish scales
Community
all over the
cafe.
place.
But that was
Yeah.
a good smell. There was
Yeah.
there was money for
Money,
There
fish.
was
yeah.
money,
Right, there was money
absolutely.
smell.
Yeah.
About
it
when did
was.
the herring runs end? The big ones.
Well, we've been gone, Bob. You have to answer
Oh.
that.
Is that
They,
in the 50s?
Well, that type of philosophy of fishing ended then. After Ernie and those guys, they sold out to Morris and Soren, right?
Right.
So after that, Morris fished the South Shore. The Booth Fisheries over there was by then really on its way out. Jimmy Erickson and a few guys fished a few herring. Mal Erickson a few years later, and then that became the end of that industry as we know it then.
Right.
And now it's back to a you know, a fairly nice little lucrative business.
Yeah.
So they're running again, or they never stopped. It just we got
What
stopped
they're
fishing.
fishing now, but in the old days, your dad and them and my dad fished bottom nets, and they used to fish the Hagen Bank, and they used to fish those banks up north. And my dad never fished much over there, but where you guys did. But he fished Sand Isle in that area, and you know they were all bottom fish. And now they've gone to top net fishing, float nets,
Okay.
and they catch those big females and stuff like that before the herring go to the bottom, and they're full of eggs, and there's as much or more money in the egg market as there is in the meat market.
Really?
So it's just
Really?
kind of like transition from that
Yeah.
to this.
Yeah. Much different.
See, the pattern of the herring is that this starting about the 1st of October, November, about November 1st, they start up in the water, and you'll see schools and schools of them, and you'll see them jumping out of the water, slapping the water like that while they're breaking their row, you know, that type of thing, and all of a sudden they get this message to go to the bottom, and they stay there, spawn, and then they just go back spread out through the lake into the deep water.
So it's a short period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those guys would catch them in that 3-week period of time when they're actually spawning on the bottom, and they'd start catching them on the outside, move up to the bank, and then back out to the deep water again. History of Fishing
History.
101. But
Yeah, well,
It was more fun to pick herring than it was to pick berries, I always thought.
did you pick berries?
I did, but I flunked.
Yeah.
I wasn't good at picking berries, and I really hated it.
Every minute of it?
I did.
Have you ever picked one since? You and I are in the same category,
I buy
sister.
them already.
all I can remember is Butch Livingston rubbing those strawberries in Bruce Peterson's white hair as a kid. And the no-see-ums.
The no-see-ums would get you every time. Oh, in the morning we'd have to get up early, and it would be damp.
How much did you get for a quart
Maybe
Nickel.
a nickel?
at the high end?
Yeah.
yeah.
So who were you picking for?
I picked I only picked raspberries actually, so it would be by the pint.
Oh, God.
But it was where Stevenson's is, and there was a lady who ran the patch for them, and she told me I was a very bad picker, and I agreed.
That helps.
And I said, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I picked strawberries for Carl Carlson out at Selma.
On the bottom of the hill there.
Yeah, just as you're coming down the hill off on the right, there was a big field.
Yeah.
Yeah. he used
By
to-
the Birch Run.
yeah, but right along 13,
Yeah.
and not way over by,
Not that far.
not that far over. It was on that sloping side hill, just as it's coming down to the.
Was
the
anybody
rushes.
still were they still raising berries down at Nurse's when you were a kid down there? Was that a thing of the past?
No, that was gone.
So Carly came up that way and,
Yeah, Carl was the only one that was picking out there that I was aware of that had beer.
yeah, it could be.
Yeah. No, that was my career. I quit then, and then I became
Went on strike.
became an usher at the movie theater and
Who owned the theater when you were in?
Iverson's.
Oh, Iverson's?
Yeah, and then I
Which
also
theater?
the one that where Brownstone,
Harbor.
The Harbor
the
Theater.
Harbor Theater, where the Brownstone
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
and yeah, I remember doing that probably for 2-3 years, and then I also was a waitress at the hotel for Bernie Okerstrom.
Bernie, okay.
That was the old hotel before it burned
So this is in high school days?
in high school,
Yeah.
A
right?
lot of kids worked there, right?
I worked for Wally Cease at the DX station.
Really?
Yep, a couple of years.
Change tires and
Oh, I can remember, a person would come in for gas, you check the oil, you check the water, you washed all the windows, you checked
That's right.
checked the tires, and you gave them gas, and then you put it on credit.
Yeah.
Because everybody had a little book that you had to go in and write down how many gallons they got.
what was Wally Cease like to work with? He was a Cracker Jack too, wasn't
Wally was a fun guy to work with. He was
Yeah.
a great boss, and yeah, he was considerably older than me, so we didn't.
he? That's probably why he got along so great with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Wally never
Get
had
along.
children, I think, right? He
No,
and Helen
no, they-
didn't
he and
have
Helen
children,
didn't
so
have
Was, was it Bertha or?
Helen Cease.
and
Oh, yeah.
she's the one
Oh, yeah.
who worked
Yeah,
at the.
yeah.
She ran the telephone.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You'd-
Yep.
You'd pick up and you'd say you want 125J, and she'd say they're not home. They've gone to Duluth.
You said your phone number was 92.
Yeah, that was it.
Ours was 98.
Was it?
And ours was 125J. That's
You
what
were
I
on a
used
party
it.
line,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really something. Because I was a friend of Sally Fuco's, and when the Fuco's, ran it, I spent a lot of time down there watching them. It was rather fascinating watching.
Where
how
was
they
the
did
phone
that.
company?
On
South Second.
2nd Street and next to Nancy Erickson.
Between Nancy's and the
Nelson House.
Xanadu, or the Nelson House. Yeah.
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 There's Xanadu, the Nelson House, then the telephone company, then Nancy Erickson, and then I
Yeah.
don't know who was living in the one below and between there and Allwood.
The Nelson House, by the way, is one of the 4 built with Bayfield brick.
Ah.
Ah,
The rectory up here at the church, and I can't remember the other 2 right now, but those are native brick buildings.
we were talking about berries. You mentioned earlier you were Strawberry Queen, Strawberry Festival.
Yes.
Talk about the Strawberry Festival and about that.
Well,
Last year.
we were
Was
discussing
there a
this
rivalry
earlier.
between the girls in
You
those
know-
days? Did you have to sell tickets or
No,
anything?
I'll tell you how we won. Yes, it was, but we didn't have to sell ourselves. I think it was buttons. and people bought buttons from whichever gal they wanted to win. I think, and there were cans around. I mean, I don't remember going out and physically selling myself. And so they just counted them up at the end and, I won. And I remember sitting in a convertible when I was probably about 16, and there was this big sign that said Strawberries Herself. And I don't think anyone has ever figured out why it was worded like that or who did that.
What did it say?
Strawberries Herself, and then my name.
That makes zero sense.
It really does.
Well,
and Gil,
she wasn't the strawberry queen, she was Strawberries herself.
apparently. And I had and Gil Larson took that picture. That picture is still around.
Is it?
And then there's another picture of me. Avis Cahill won the
You
shortcake.
don't have it, do you?
Yes, they're around. They're up at Millie's, or yeah, they're around.
That would be
Those
fun
pictures.
to see that.
Yeah, I might have I might have them in Florida, but they're in our possession. But Gil Larson took them, and then I was feeding shortcake to Avis because she won the shortcake contest. So I had my little tiara on, and I was feeding her the shortcake.
While we're here, we're doing that Gil Larson exhibit. We might be pestering you for that photo later
Well,
on.
it is quite something. Strawberries herself. And I do remember, as the strawberry queen, going to Duluth and marching in their big parade. And I remember Millie went up with me and coming out on the stage. I was introduced, and then the next day we were in a parade, and it was cold. It was in the fall.
Was that like a Christmas Day in the North?
It was
forget
late, and
that.
it was probably a little earlier than that, but it was very cold, I remember.
Who
So
was your entourage?
I do not remember
No,
that.
fun.
No,
No.
I don't. But anyway, that
Well-
was a strawberry festival.
And the Strawberry Festival is kind of, you said, the precursor of the Apple Festival.
Right.
You guys know when it started, the Strawberry Festival, or
It
when it
succeeded
was,
the
or-
regatta.
when was it during the year?
I can remember,
July.
I think
July.
as a kid, that the regatta was still going on. So I would think the regatta was still going on in the late or early 40s. It may have gone later.
Oh, I think it went later than that.
But I know there was a regatta at that time.
Yeah.
And then it morphed into the Strawberry Festival at some time, and then changed
Eventually,
dates and became the Apple,
Apple
Festival.
Fest.
And to my knowledge, there's always been a festival here
And what
every
went
year.
on in the Regatta and the Strawberry Festival? What went on in those things?
well, they did
You had a parade, obviously. 'cause you
parades,
were-
and then they always had a Venetian parade to end it all. And in those days, everybody went out. The fish boats, everybody went out and decorated their boats. And I remember riding in one of my dad's boats, and that.
Well, and that was before there were any sailboats.
Right.
So
right.
all the boats were local people. There was no
Yeah.
visitors, and it was a celebration of the local people. And so I think they raced, if I remember rightly. There were boat races and
And tugs of war.
tug of war and things like that.
And like yep.
There was one sailboat in Bayfield that I know of. I got a photo of it. My grandfather Mulkey in 1942 built a boat called the Fiesta. And I've got a photo of my mother on that, and he was the only sailor because he was like from the Baltic.
Sure.
So I don't know if he got in any regattas or not with that, but he would like to lay in there. Did you know that story?
No,
No.
no,
I'll show you that boat.
no, no.
That's wonderful.
Mom was just back from Florida.
It's so amazing when you see people's reaction now, and you tell them that when we grew up here, there were no sailboats. You know that this was no marina here.
There were more sailboats here in 1856 than there ever were
Yep.
in
Well,
that
we were
period of
That's
time.
right. They were all gone by
yeah.
then.
Yeah,
So,
here and gone.
Yeah.
but we had a sailboat ride too, and Uncle Millie's brother came up from southern Wisconsin with a little sailboat that he had.
A racing scow.
Yeah, and I guess it didn't have a motor.
No
Because
more.
we got becalmed between here and Madeline, and Richard Erickson came out and rescued us and
was
pulled
that?
us,
Towed us
towed
back
us
in.
Our
in.
hero Richard.
That's right.
My second grade sweetheart, Richard. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He saw us, and
Because we were out there leading over the side,
Yes.
doing this,
Didn't
trying
have a paddle.
we didn't have a oar, we didn't have a paddle, nothing. There were three of us, her uncle and the two of us, doing this, trying to get back to Bayfield.
What boat did he come and get you with?
I don't know. It was a small boat.
He was just coming by in it was a fish boat.
Was it a fishboat?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a
I think he was just
In the
coming in.
Marianne or the Marie or?
Don't remember.
Huh.
Don't remember. All I remember was thank goodness somebody came.
Yeah, we're out of here.
Yeah.
Never again?
Never been sailing again.
No, that's
Don't
true.
trust those things.
Don't go there again.
No. So,
Yeah.
well,
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Well, we got to, though, there's a subject we've got to go through is your cooking, life in cooking, because you're a gourmet cook, I know that. And you've taught cooking and you still teach.
well, I not as much
So,
as I once
You
did.
said Ernie was a good cook.
He was a good cook, and I had uncles who were good
And
cooks.
when did you get interested in it? And
Very early in my life was I interested in cooking. I always loved to cook from the time I was a little kid, and my mom said that eventually she just kind of turned the kitchen over to me because it was evident that I was going to do it anyway. So always liked to cook, and then when we got to Minneapolis, when Dave started his residency, I found that there was a woman teaching cooking classes at the Y, and I arranged to get a sitter during the day so I could go to these classes. And we had 2 little boys then, and it turned out to be 13 years of wonderful friendships with this woman and all the students. We all kind of went through all of these together. And at one point, a very good friend of mine decided she was going to open a cookware store and a cooking school in Golden Valley, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. And she asked me if I would teach. And I thought, well, you know, I've been doing this all these years. I've learned an awful lot from this woman, but my credentials aren't any greater than a lot of people who've also done this, and I felt a little insecure about doing that, but I did start, and then through the years, I went to France and studied. When La Varenne was up and running in Paris, I went there one summer for a few weeks, and traveled over there many, many, many times and did little short-term things with Simone Beck in the south of France. And then also followed Jacques Pepin around. He used to come to Minneapolis to teach and did week-long courses in Chicago or Colorado or something. And this friend and I would go, and Dave, I always said, you know, would support my habit, let me go. His mom would come and take care of the boys or whatever. And then as the boys got older, it was easier. But it was just kind of piecemeal, but I loved it. And through the years started teaching more. And then I started teaching at Mary Rice's school in St. Paul, the original Thrice. And
on Grand Avenue.
next to the Lex, yeah. And taught there, and then it moved down to another location at Victoria, and then eventually they bought their own building. So I have taught for them for probably 30 years. So Mary and I go back a long way
Yeah.
as far as knowing each other, you know, but I knew Martha better probably because I was with her a lot. So that's how it all evolved, you know. It was a matter of just doing it and loving it. And my training is definitely French, classic French training, but that, of course, evolves into anything, you know. But I don't teach Chinese, and I don't teach Mexican, and I don't teach Thai. You know, I sort of figure, let the experts do that. I just kind of stick with basics and just whatever sells at the cooking schools, basically. Taught in a lot of cooking schools in Minneapolis, too. There were many. Kitchen Window, Bonaventure, I had Cinnamon Toast, La Cuvette. During that time, we also, speaking of La Cuvette, we also bought a little popcorn company. And Dave thought I needed something to do. And so we bought this little popcorn company. And our kids were in Carleton by then. 2 of our boys were at Carleton. And they always had that 6-week off period before holidays. And so we did wholesale only. So we got them involved with making this popcorn. And we rented space downtown St. Paul in an old control data building. They were renting out to small businesses. And I shopped around for restaurant-approved equipment at secondhand places. And we put this thing together and made 3 kinds of popcorn and packaged it in big 2-gallon tins with 3 flavors in, and then wholesaled it. It was called Popples, and it was awfully good. Very, very bad for your arteries, but awfully good. And and our kids, our three sons, just milked that as far as their resumes were concerned as they went on to to grad school or jobs, whatever. They had that experience in this food
A
company.
great experience at that.
And we ended up either having to enlarge it and buying more equipment for it or selling it, and we ended up selling it.
You just didn't want to go to that store.
No, it got to be.
Well, I figured I would stay being a radiologist. I didn't want to be a popcorn king. So we sold,
It paid better.
we sold the business, and it ended up with Barrel of Fun.
Yeah, and
it did.
Yeah.
we keep looking for it. There was a man by the name of Johnson who bought it.
Johnson, not in.
Yeah, and he
Bought
did
it
private
originally.
labeling for Lund's and Byerly's and those companies. And then it ended up being sold by him because he didn't want to do it. And I've never found the product
No.
again.
It disappeared, but that was where
Did
it
you
went.
have a
out.
trademark name for it then?
Popples.
Bubbles.
Popples.
Yeah.
Okay.
It had been started by my good friend's daughter.
How'd you come up with the name Popples?
She did.
She had already.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was already. She had done that and all
Yeah,
of
the artwork
artwork and everything
was
prior
done,
to us.
yeah.
She couldn't. It got too big for her because she was just
Newly married and then
married.
was pregnant. And yeah, so it was fun while it lasted, but it was a lot of work.
Okay.
Oh man, it was a lot of work, but it was good. I still have the recipes.
Where was it located?
Downtown St. Paul, right near the farmers market area. There was an old control data building that they turned over to somebody to rent out to small businesses. So we were in a building that had a little bit of everything in it. And it was, it's one of those things that you just wonder why, but we did.
What mood was I in when
Yes.
this happened?
Yvonne, you didn't ever work as a chef though?
No,
Or
no, I didn't.
Catering or that stuff?
No, I really didn't. It's hard work, and I just never felt that I wanted to get into it that deeply. Teaching was just fine. It was in somebody else's kitchen. We used to do private classes a lot in people's homes, and that was kind of like catering, because you'd end
Would
up.
have gone into the restaurant business if she'd had a backer that would agree to it, but she didn't have a backer, and she
The
didn't.
truth come out.
That's a tough life.
Oh.
Yeah, our youngest son was kind of wanting to be in the food business, and after he graduated from Carleton, he came out to California because we were living there then. And I have a good friend who has many restaurants in the Napa Valley, and she did have Fog City Diner in San Francisco. She had been a student of ours when she was a teenager, Cindy Paulson from Golden Valley. And so I asked her what Ned should do. Should he go out to the CIA in New York? Should he go to the San Francisco Professional School? She said, none of that. Have him work in our kitchens first. So she put him to work at Fog City Diner, and he worked there about a year in the kitchen. And then they moved him to Mill Valley,
Buckeye Roadhouse.
and he worked in the front of the house there. And after that second year, he came to us and said, I don't think I can make a living doing this, And so he went back to Minneapolis. And then he still was looking for work, and he became a Taco Bell manager with all this experience.
Taco Bells.
Yeah, he had 3 Taco
Did
Bells.
Dad Burner fall off his stool when he heard that, or
No, it was it was just another
Another
step along the
step
way.
along
Yeah,
the way.
that's
And he has wonderful stories about his Taco Bells. One was on Lake Street, one was in Columbia Heights. They were scattered, and the multitude of problems with the employees, of course, and lots of things went on. So he learned a lot, and he learned he didn't want to do that either. So then he went to business school at the Carlson School at the U of Minnesota and got his MBA. And then he started working for Anderson Consulting, which now has changed, but that's what it was called then. And there was a fellow who was trying to get Anderson into consulting with restaurants. And so he took Ned under his wing. And they worked with that for a while. But then Anderson decided they didn't want to do that. Ned stayed with them for a while and then eventually left with this gentleman, and they started their own company doing something totally different. But but he still cooks. He loves to cook. He is.
In fact, all three boys
You
do all
must
the
have some
cooking for
great
the
holiday
families.
dinners.
We do. We do. We
I was gonna
do.
say, Dave, I suppose through all this, you got hamburgers and French fries. While
Well, no, most of the time we're testing something for the next class.
oh, I see. So
Because if the truth be told, and I will tell it, what she really likes about cooking is she likes to cook, but what she really likes to do is develop recipes.
oh,
So that's why she liked teaching, is because she could spend, well, days and days. She's now just finished up after working for 4 or 5 days on what she's going to teach to
Well, it's Heidi's class that
Heidi's.
she bid on at the auction last year, and we're doing
okay.
it. We're doing it
Well,
next week.
That's right. So we have been fine tuning recipes, and she has a zillion recipes, and she never makes them again. Once she's done the recipe,
One-
I'll tell you a story and it's no secret. I've told this before. There was a time many years ago when she was going to teach croissants, and she must have tried 25 different recipes of croissants. So there was about a 6-month period in there where, I mean, we had croissants all the time, and they were all great. I couldn't tell the difference between them.
yeah.
She finally found the recipe she liked. She's never made me a croissant since.
Oh,
Oh, poor Dave.
well,
Oh,
But
we-
I mean, that's just an
get
example.
out the crying towel.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't mean it in that sense. I
Yeah.
just mean in the sense that she's gone on to something
No.
else.
Sure.
we used to teach a lot of bread classes, and it was always a struggle because you didn't have time in the time frame of a class to do from scratch. You had to do steps ahead and then back up, and it was always rather interesting. So I remember driving along the freeways in Minneapolis, and there'd be a Tupperware full of dough in the seat next to me, and I'd be going punching it down.
Oh.
So that it was
Take
you
it
know,
out.
because I was on my way to class, and I didn't want it to be too much. Have raised too much.
Well, that world of breads is something else too, boy. That's a
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. The croissant is hard. It's a lot of rolling out. It's hard for old girls like me. Yes.
I think she likes baking the best of all the
Yeah.
things she does
Yeah,
as
it's
far as
fun.
teaching
It's
and
fun.
doing.
Well, I have to ask this, Yvonne. Did you ever cross paths with Julia Child?
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. In
Tell-
fact,
tell me a little bit about that.
well, Julia started an organization called it's now called the International Association of Culinary Professionals. At the time it was started, it was the Association of Cooking Teachers or something, and it was, I went like the second year that it was going, and Dave found it in an old gourmet magazine and said, "You and Lois ought to go to this." And so we flew down to New Orleans and went to this convention, and Julia was there. And then every year there was a convention held somewhere, different cities every year. And I went to an awful lot of them. And Julia at one point decided that we cooking teachers should have some sort of accreditation. And so we worked out this whole thing that we would have to fill out, how many hours we had taught, where our training had been, blah, blah, blah. And so my claim to fame is that Julia and I went through the same accreditation class. We each got, when there were about 20 of us, and we got a platter from Waring Stainless Company that had a Ducal stuck on it that said, that we had achieved this wonderful thing. But we would see Julia every year, and I actually stayed at the farm in the south of France where she and Paul had their home at Simca's Simone Beck's, and took classes from Simca there. And so, it wasn't that I knew her intimately or anything, but I'd see her every year, and she was such a friendly, wonderful lady that she always acknowledged those of us who she had seen around, and Paul was always with her. She was a wonderful lady.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful lady.
I never met her.
Never.
I didn't
You
go
didn't
along
go on
to
these
I
trips.
didn't go on these trips.
Went to one to Philadelphia,
I
remember?
did go to one to Philadelphia.
Yeah, and that was
Enough.
That was enough. It was, the main dinner was catered in an old railroad station or something, and things happened, and we sat there for hours waiting for food to come. And I think he thought, "This isn't so
What
great." Yeah, so
Well, and I wasn't interested in the meeting then where they were discussing how to be a food writer, and then the other meetings, other choices were equally bad. So there wasn't anything for me
No.
to do, so I didn't go.
it wasn't. And anyway, we girls always had fun. You know, we
That's
didn't
right.
need
It was a
we didn't need
girls'
the guys there.
organization.
It was, social.
Yeah,
Have
but
you
that
ever
was.
collected your recipes into a book? Or
I've
thinking
not
about
done
that?
a book. I have.
You got 2 books gotta get written here.
Yeah.
Her
I
kids
have.
have been after her.
Yeah,
To write books.
Our
No.
youngest son is scanning all of the thrice Cooks of Crocus Hill recipes, and he now has the whole group, and he hasn't finished scanning them, and then he puts them on a disc thing or whatever, right, on that little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's done. But then I have all these other schools too. I've got lateral files that are like this, full, in Florida. And I don't have I've got a lot of stuff up here too. I try to bring duplications of what I'm going to need, because when I'm asked to put together a class up here, I sort of need my library and my old files and things. So it's going to be nice to have it all on the computer. As far as a cookbook, I think there's so many cookbooks being written all the time, I just can't imagine a need. And what I've done is so general. What I did mostly the last few years in the Twin Cities was teach fish classes. And I loved it, because there I could get anything. Coastal seafood, you could get anything. And people really didn't know what to do with all this fish. And so I just taught fish classes all the time, and I really enjoyed that. So I might, consider, well, I could do a one theme book and do it fish with accompaniments or whatever.
Yeah,
But I,
Well, at the very least, it seems to me like you got to have the collected recipes of Yvonne Moody in some kind of, what I mean?
it would be a tome.
A series. We're not talking about one book. We're talking about a series of
I'll have to
Dedicate a shelf to that.
They have to get a big hard drive,
It would be a shelf, all right.
a 5 gig hard drive or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
all this wonderful expertise and love of food lost. See what I mean? That's what I'm
Yeah,
talking
well, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, for
It
posterity.
is kind of sad, as I do these now, I'm enjoying doing this for Heidi, and the one that we do at the BHA in July, which is, people paying for the class, and then it's sort of a catered meal, basically. And it's a lot of work, but it's been fun, and it's a good fundraiser for BHA.
Yeah, it
And,
really is.
yeah, they enjoy it. And so, yeah, it's a lot of history. When he retired, I sort of retired too. I did go back and teach when I was living in California. When we were out there, I would fly back to Minneapolis and teach. But
And she still judges chefs competitions in Minneapolis. We do go there
yeah,
once or twice a year.
I belong to an organization called the Chaîne de Rôtisseurs, which is an old French organization from the 1300s or something, and the name comes from rotisseries and doing birds on rotisseries. But anyway, I have belonged to that for probably 30 years, and they do ask me to come back. They sponsor a young chefs competition every year, 27 years or younger, they must be. And so I go back in January usually and be one of the judges for that. This year they also did the regional in Minneapolis, so I judged that one
What do you
too.
look for in when you judge?
Well, this is kind of like the Iron Chef thing. They give each of these contestants a basket of food, and it's identical. Each one gets the same thing. And from that, they have to compile a menu of 3 courses. And so it's an appetizer, main course, dessert. And they can also use whatever ingredients are in the kitchen. It'll be at a professional kitchen like the Cordon Bleu in Minneapolis, or
Okay.
there's another professional school downtown Minneapolis.
Okay, so let's backtrack a little. And you were talking about your pick up where you left off.
Okay, we're talking about the Young Chef competition in Minneapolis
Yeah.
that I
That
judge.
in addition to being a cook, you're also judge.
Yeah, and
Judge.
it's a fun thing to do. These young people are very creative. They're either working for a hotel, a restaurant, or maybe they're in professional cooking school when they enter these contests. And they some of them do very well, some don't. But it's a wonderful thing to see how passionate they are about doing this, and they love it. And this year, the young man who won the regional was from Madison, Wisconsin, and I don't think he won. He didn't win the national. He won the regional, but he did not place in the national. But anyway,
But ultimately, there's one international winner and gets
Yeah.
a lot of gold and
Yeah.
well, he gets a lot of accolades
lots of
anyway.
accolades. That's
Yeah,
right.
So what is the competition called?
It's called Jean Camille, which is young Camille being the young apprentice or something like that. And they sponsor it from this organization, the Chaîne de Retisseur. And so usually it's a member who sponsors, and the member can be someone who manages the hotel or manages the restaurant or whatever, or is a chef. And usually they're tutored by these people because they want them to do well. And the basket will contain odd things like maybe it has an artichoke, it might have a pineapple, it'll have scallops, it'll have duck breasts, it'll have a rack of lamb, it'll be
Or
a mixed bag of things.
ostrich.
Yes, ostrich this year, or quinoa, or bulgur. Sometimes these kids haven't even heard of what
And then
the
what's-
grain
what do
is
they
or
have to
something.
do then?
They have to make 3 courses out of this. So they have a half hour to plan their menu.
Oh,
And so
my
one
God.
is an appetizer, one is the main course, and one is dessert. And so say you have a pineapple and they think, okay, I can slice this and maybe broil it and put it with something to make a dessert. They have to think this through, knowing that they can
Quickly.
get brown sugar or cream or eggs or whatever they might need to make a cake, or they can pretty much, as long as they think it through and know what's in this kitchen, they can pretty much come up with a pretty good menu.
And each item has to be used at least once. So,
In the basket.
In the basket. So you have to use it in at least one of the dishes. So sometimes you end up with what you might think would be a dessert item being used as an appetizer, in as portion of an
Yeah.
appetizer or something, because they can't figure out what else to do with it.
Right. Well, for instance, if it's a pineapple, you might think, oh, that'll be a dessert. Well, no, they'll do it like a salsa for a piece of fish as a first course or something. So
Yeah.
it's creative for them. It's interesting to see what they do. And then they come out to the judges, and we have professional chef judges, and then people like me judging, and then there's a kitchen judge who watches them, watches the technique, watches how clean they keep their stations and all of that. And then we judge on appearance, taste, and originality. So many points for each one. And then the ones that get the most points obviously win.
Oh.
So, but
Sounds like fun for a judge and
it's fun. It
hell
is.
for a contestant.
Yeah, it's fun. And they don't know us, we don't know them, they don't see us judging. And it's really pretty funny when we sit around our table and we're, sticking our finger and licking at them. What did he mean to do here? And you can usually tell if it's a female or male by the handwriting. I shouldn't say that, but usually the handwriting is neater if it's a girl. And so I'll, sometimes I'll say he, and then I'll think, oh no, I think that's a gal, but it's fun. And then you have to compare what they've written out. Okay, she said she's going to do this. Does this really,
Yeah.
this really
Yeah.
live up to what she has said? So
And then afterwards, they all get together and they give feedback to the students.
you do.
Yeah. Wow. So this is something you'll continue doing, obviously.
As long as I'm asked,
Yeah.
it is an invitation.
Now, in
So-
that magazine you showed us, you had a title. Could you tell me what that title is again and what it means?
Maître maître rôtisseur traiteur. And
Yeah.
it just means basically that I'm a master of food, catering, whatever, the rôtisseur word being from the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of different titles with this.
So how did you get this title? I mean, what did you have to do to get the title?
Well, I was invited originally to join the organization by a good friend, and I had a different title then. I was a dame de rôtisseur, and that was sort of the generic female designation for this
Yeah.
organization. And at some point, somebody said, you really, most of the gals who came and were dame de rôtisseurs didn't cook. They were just maybe there with their husbands or whatever. So he decided that maybe I should have a different title.
Yeah.
And that's the one they came up with. And so I changed from a purple ribbon to an orange ribbon. Therefore, I have to always wear black, and I look like I'm going to a Halloween party. But but that's the
Yeah.
organization. Dave and I also had belonged for many years to the International Wine and Food Society in the Twin Cities, and we did go to an international convention in London one time, which was marvelous, and
bet.
we had a lot of fun with that over the years too. So we've had a lot of fun with food and wine. He got into the study of wine quite a bit because of my interest in food, and so he became quite an expert on wine. And whenever I need suggestions about what do I tell them to serve with this, he usually can tutor
Oh, that's
me.
great. So that's a good partnership.
I had a wine cellar for a long time, but once we left the last house, he kind of gave up.
That's right. No use
Well, now
putting
when you
away
live in
wine.
two different places
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Well, that's right. Plus, why save wine for when you're going to be 90? You might not be around to drink it. So
Yeah. Right.
Perish the thought.
There's the
Our
thought.
son Ned has a big wine cellar now. He did an expansion of his house in Oak Park, and he's put in a beautiful little wine cellar. And he really collects wine, so
that's good.
it's in the genes, I
I
guess.
guess it is.
Yep, sure is.
Ernie would be proud of Ned because he spent a lot of time with Ernie, and the fact that he's so into food and wine and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The other two boys also were the apples of his eye. Ernie had a lot of fun with those boys, and they have such fond memories of Bayfield and him and Millie. The
Yeah.
pancake breakfasts, all the fun they had.
Well, it is. It's. I'm sorry to hear the house is going to go out of the family. That's always kind of.
Yeah, it is too bad. But Marilyn
end of
is.
an era.
Yeah, she's just decided she wants to be nearer her family, and she's been up here 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
So hopefully someone nice will buy the house and maybe keep the lights on all year instead of just in the summer. That would be nice. And
Well, if I didn't like my own house so much, I'd
you think about
move
it.
across the ravine.
Yeah. Well, anyway, hopefully
Yeah.
she'll be happy in her new home. She's moving down to North Branch near Minneapolis. So
Right.
yeah. So
Well, what have we missed? Have we missed anything along the way that
oh gosh.
we didn't ask that you'd like to talk about?
No?
Did we cover the?
I can't think of anything particularly.
I think you
Talk
did a
about the
great job.
kids. We didn't talk about our doggie
Who's been making noise here?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, doggie.
The one thing that I remember when we were talking about the sanatorium, how Dave was out there and I was in town here, but
Yeah.
every Christmas morning, the church choirs would get together and go out and serenade, sing carols up and down the halls at the San, and we would all wear white robes from the San,
The isolation gowns.
isolation gowns,
Oh,
so we
no
were all
kidding.
in white,
Yeah.
and then they would feed us.
And the white mask.
Yeah, and
And
we'd
a red
carry
candle.
a candle, right? And we would
And-
sing Christmas carols up and
But you
down the
couldn't go in
halls.
the rooms.
No,
No.
No, but they were in the hallways, which were they were, contaminated. So that's why they had to wear the isolation
Yeah.
robes and everything. So,
I see.
and they could look into the rooms, and they did. They'd look into the rooms and say hello, and the patients.
and the patients would be
wave
in their doorways, and
They'd be in their
yeah, it
doorways,
was
yeah.
wonderful. And then they'd feed us a wonderful breakfast downstairs. And in those days, it was all homemade food. It was just wonderful,
Yeah.
And then when Dave and I started going together, I would always go over to their house then. so I got to go over to the main
So
house.
we could open Christmas presents.
Yeah, so it was wonderful. It was a magical time.
Yeah.
The snow would be covering the little trees out there. It would be just beautiful. Those mornings, it was still dark, and we'd go, and
Yeah.
very, very nice. Nice tradition.
Yeah. Now, when did the sanatorium close? Did we get that?
My dad retired in '67. He was the last full-time physician. The patient load had fallen, and the doctor that was full-time at Middle River and Superior would come over and cover. And when did they actually close? I don't know the exact date. I would say probably around 1975, I'm guessing.
And then when was the building torn down? Because that was up when I came up here in the 80s.
Yeah, there was quite a while while the owners, the three county boards, were trying to decide what to do with it.
Yeah.
And ultimately they figured there was nothing they could do that was economical, and so it sat there for a while with nothing happening except vandalism.
Yeah.
And then I guess they decided to tear it down. We were gone. I really don't remember the year that it happened.
There, you can be in the
But the quarters for the, must have been the quarters where you lived in.
That's still there.
That's still there.
Yes.
There's two houses out there. What were they?
Okay, the house that is the square brick house is the old original doctor's building,
Okay.
doctor's home.
So that's where you lived.
Yep. The newer one, that I think is a shiplap siding or something like that, is built on the foundations of what was a very similar looking building, which was the nurse's home.
Oh, cool.
There was also a garage, a 4-car garage, which has now been torn down and turned into a garden, and that comes off of the nurse's home, just at the end of the driveway. And then the water tower is still standing. They've torn down the entire SAN. They tore down the power plant. We had our own heating system and water system. And so that's all that's really left that's original is the doctor's home.
Yeah. It's too bad that didn't get preserved along the way and turned into something useful. You know, because the brick building, but
Yeah.
those limestone colored bricks.
Yeah.
very
And
pretty.
It was a beautiful
Yeah.
setting.
Well,
But
if there was no way
not
of
meant to be.
providing for, they had an elevator, so that wasn't an issue. But in terms of having bathrooms, there were not individual bathrooms
Yeah.
on the rooms, and they were, well, at that time nobody had any money to do anything up here.
Yeah, and also it was sort of pre-condo days.
Yes,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
Well, quite a bit of history though. Down there.
Yeah.
Lots of history.
All right.
Okay, well,
I think
thank you very
Wait
much.
a minute. I got to get a little close up with the dog here now.
Oh,
because-
dear.
Oh, okay.
Who's the dog again?
There. Tia.
Tia.
Yeah.
Tia. 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 Of course, the dogs will never look.
No.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
So she travels to Florida with you.
Yes,
Yeah.
she goes everywhere with us.
Well, she was pretty good actually during this whole thing. I was,
Except for ringing her
she
bells.
rang her bell a little
And
bit.
she was
but,
digging on the carpet in the kitchen
but she
on the little
wasn't. She
rug.
wasn't barking though.
No, she.
No, she rarely does.
Yeah.
Rarely
Yeah.
does. She's a very quiet dog.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You
Well,
guys.
you're welcome.
You're very welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh,